The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 Attack. After working all day, Terumi finally had some free time until late at night. As soon as she stopped working, she couldn't help but think of her father, and her eyes began to turn red. Because the clan was busy with many things and the situation was unclear, she had not had the opportunity to recover the bodies of her father's guards until now. At this moment, thinking of this incident, tears could no longer be stopped and rolled down the corners of her eyes. My lord, you should have a good rest. There are more important things that need you to preside over tomorrow. The maid next to her whispered. Okay, I know. Terumi wiped her eyes, waved her hand, and then stood up from the chair and walked out the door. With the dim light in the corridor, she slowly walked back to her room. However, lying on the bed, she couldn't fall asleep, because as long as she closed her eyes, her father's voice and appearance would appear in front of her. It was unknown how long it took until Terumi was exhausted physically and mentally. Her consciousness gradually blurred, and a void vortex quietly opened in her room. A figure dressed in black and wearing an orange one-eyed mask walked out. It was Afeni, who came to search for the remains of Yuan Yelin. After some investigation, he easily sneaked into the residence of the Terumi clan with the help of the spatial power of his Manjaki Sharingan, and found Terumi Mei's room. At the same time, Terumi Mei, who was not completely asleep and lying on her side on the bed, opened her eyes immediately after noticing this abnormal fluctuation. An enemy has sneaked in. She immediately realized the current situation. If it was her own people, no one would dare to sneak into her room so casually. Therefore, she could be sure that the person who came was definitely not a good person. Then, after a little thought, she closed her eyes again, pretending to be asleep while secretly gathering chakra in her mouth. After locking the target on the bed, Afei walked over gently and stretched out a hand, ready to absorb Terumi Mei into his own space. The absorption ability of his right eye is not unlimited, but he needs to have direct contact with the target in order to absorb it into the Sharingan space. Terumi, who noticed the stranger approaching, also raised her attention to the utmost. As his fingers got closer and closer to the other person's shoulder, Afei couldn't help but feel a little proud. At this moment, he saw the woman who was originally sleeping suddenly turned her head and opened her mouth to spray a thick white mist at him. Afei was immediately startled and instinctively retracted his palm and blocked it in front of his face. Although there was a layer of mask protection outside, at this critical moment, he couldn't care so much, and it was more important to protect his head with all his strength. Zzzz. When the white mist sprayed on his hands, Afei's black gloves immediately melted away at a speed visible to the naked eye, and at the same time, there was a strong burning sensation on his skin and scalp. Strong acid. It was not until then that he finally understood that the seemingly inconspicuous thick fog was not the mist hidden technique commonly used by the mist ninja, but another kind of acid mist with strong corrosiveness. So what? You know, too late. Terumi shouted, took out a kunai from the bedside, and immediately slashed it towards the masked man's neck. Unfortunately, her kunai passed through the opponent's neck without any delay, but did not leave the slightest scar. How is it possible? The attack was ineffective. Terumi Mei screamed and turned back and spit out a thick white mist at the masked man again. Then, the white mist filled the room and immediately filled the entire room. That was her second blood limit, boiling release. With this escape technique, she can create an acid mist with stronger corrosive power than dissolving release. Especially in this confined space, her acid mist will fill the entire room in all directions without dead ends due to the characteristics of diffusion. As for the enemies, trapped in the acid mist, they will be completely dissolved by the strong corrosive power of the acid mist in less than a minute. But because this technique will cause indiscriminate attacks in a region, in order to prevent injuries to teammates, she usually does not use it in open areas. Now, this daring guy actually dared to sneak into her room, which was simply looking for death. Unfortunately, the opponent's painful struggle that she expected to see did not appear. The other party stood calmly in the thick fog, and even the corners of his clothes were not damaged. If it weren't for the fact that the other party's hands that had been in direct contact with the acid mist earlier still had traces of corrosion, she almost thought that what she saw was just an afterimage and her attack had no effect at all. What kind of strange ability is this? Why does it look so familiar? She frowned, confused. On the other side, taking a glance at the room, shrouded in acid mist, Afei sighed. It seems that I still underestimated you. In just a few breaths, all kinds of objects in the room slowly dissipated in the acid mist. He even saw that a small silver cup on the bedside table had turned into a pool of silver white liquid. And his absorption ability must reveal the entity and make direct contact with the other party to achieve the purpose. More importantly, the ability to virtualize cannot be used together with the absorption ability. In this case, if he insisted on sucking Meditarumi into the different space, it means that he will be burned by the ubiquitous acid mist. Corrosion and burns on the body surface are only secondary. What is more dangerous is that he cannot guarantee that he can survive after forcibly absorbing the opponent. Because the air is full of this acid mist, when he reveals his physical body to absorb the opponent, he is likely to inhale this terrifying acid mist into his body. And the fragile internal organs cannot be compared with the tough skin. But his ability to hollow out is not a real hollow body, but just hides the body in a different space, so that the enemy cannot attack. Once the acid mist is inhaled, even the ability to hollow out cannot avoid damage. He is likely to be completely dissolved, and die without leaving any residue. At the same time, Meditarumi also recalled the dusty past. When they were retrieving the Three Tails Jinchuriki, they encountered an extremely difficult opponent. The opponent could hollow his body and be immune to all attacks. Now, after encountering a similar ability again, and seeing the opponent's right eye glowing red, she suddenly realized, it's you. This ability is too rare. Even the Hidden Mist Village has never recorded it. It can be said to be extremely rare. With such a rare ability, and eyes that look like Sharingan, it's hard for Terumi Mei not to connect them together. On the other side, Afei did not deny it, but used his ability to transform into a virtual being, to stand in the acid mist and asked solemnly, tell me, where did Qishuang hide Lin? Chapter 377 Balance. Hearing this, Meditarumi was stunned for a moment, then sneered twice and said, it seems that Qishuang is right. You really care about that girl. Now, he actually came to my door. I thought he had done a useless job. Hearing her say this, Afei's eyes lit up. Before, he learned from King that Qishuang and others had found Lin's body, but King only heard about it and did not see it with his own eyes. Now, Afei was surprised to hear the news that Qishuang had found Lin's body again from the mouth of this person involved. However, new questions followed. Why did that guy named Qishuang go to such lengths to find Lin's body? Afei couldn't help but have such doubts. Just as Afei was about to ask a few more questions, there was a rustling sound of footsteps outside the door. Master Meditarumi, what happened? A guard of the Terumi clan shouted outside the house. They found that white mist was floating out of Meditarumi's room, so they hurried over with people. Then, two more guards walked out of the crowd, ready to break in. Noticing the intentions of the people outside the house, Meditarumi immediately stopped them loudly. Don't come in. This room is full of my boiling acid mist. Stay outside and surround the house. Don't let the thief escape. Hearing this, everyone immediately understood that there was an assassin breaking in, and Lady Meditarumi used boiling acid, so white mist floated out from the crack of the door. Then, everyone scattered and surrounded the entire house like an iron tunnel, making people wonder if a fly could fly out of it. Inside the house, Meditarumi said to the figure in the mist, Qishuang once said that when you use your ability to become a hollow, you cannot attack your opponent either. And I will fill the entire room with acid mist. As long as you dare to show your physical body, you will be corroded by the acid mist immediately. It only takes a few breaths to turn you into a pool of pus. This time, you can't run away. Afei glanced at the shadowy figure outside the window and said calmly, he knows a lot, but unfortunately there is one thing he doesn't know. No space has any meaning to me. I can go wherever I want. Then, he sighed and said, that's it for today. We will have a chance to meet again in the future. Goodbye. As he said that, He waved to Terumi through the white mist, and then mobilized the chakra to drive the ability of his right eye to open a vortex of emptiness in front of him. This closed space can allow Terumi's acid mist to be used to the limit, which is too dangerous for him. There will be plenty of time and opportunities in the future, and he doesn't need to rush now. However, there was one thing he didn't understand. Qishuang knew him better than he did. Whether it was his weaknesses or his strengths, they were all clear. As for his ability to ignore space and come and go freely, Qishuang also knew it, but she just hadn't had the chance to tell Terumi. Then, Terumi saw a fairy being sucked into a vortex of the void, and then completely disappeared. She hurriedly dispersed the acid mist in the room, and rushed out of the door, but still couldn't sense the man's breath. "Where is he?" she asked loudly to the guards around. "Isn't he in the room? We didn't see anyone come out." The guard closest to her shook his head in surprise. Hearing this, Terumi frowned, bit her lip, and thought to herself, this guy is more difficult than before. There is no doubt that the other party left here quietly through some special ability. However, it is incredible that he can break through the heavy siege outside and let the guards not notice it at all. "My lord, what should we do next?" The leader of the guards stepped forward and asked. Terumi pondered for a moment and said helplessly, "Increase the vigilance. That person's ability is too terrifying. He comes and goes without a trace. There is almost no point in guarding. But even so, we can't do nothing and let it go. Especially in such a tense situation. She must strengthen the vigilance and calm people's hearts." After receiving the order, the leader of the guard slowly withdrew. Soon, the entire Terumi clan knew that an assassin had sneaked in, and people were panicked for a while. Fortunately, the obvious increase in the number of patrols made everyone feel more at ease. On the other hand, under the guidance of the three snake princesses, Qishuang of Langqi Cave completely mastered the levitation technique in a short time. And because this technique is just a trick used by the three snake princesses to play, its actual consumption is not large. Just use a little of your own chakra to attract the surrounding natural energy to create buoyancy. It does not consume the natural energy absorbed by yourself to perform the technique. In other words, Qishuang does not need to enter the sage mode to use this ability. But the key to using the levitation technique is that the caster must have the ability to perceive and manipulate natural energy. Therefore, even if it does not need to absorb natural energy to drive itself, the levitation technique is not a technique that ordinary people can practice. It is a fairy technique that only immortals are qualified to practice. Then, after completing the practice of the levitation technique, the three snake princesses began to teach the sealing technique. Xianxin Shenji said to Qishuang seriously, "According to your request, we are going to teach you the dragon heart seal of Langdi Cave. This sealing technique can set the opening conditions according to the requirements of the caster. As long as the set requirements are met, this seal will automatically open anytime and anywhere. But I'm curious, why do you learn such a boring sealing technique? We have many powerful fairy techniques in Langdi Cave. In the past, after becoming immortals, humans would learn some extremely powerful offensive fairy techniques from them. A guy like Qishuang who is so different is the first one." Qishuang shrugged and replied, "I already have a lot of offensive spells. Learning a few more will only give me a few more attack styles. What I need now is a special functional spell to deal with some special situations. Increase your ability to solve problems, make up for your weaknesses, and prevent yourself from capsizing in the gutter. Blindly pursuing attack or defense is too extreme. The result of extreme development is that you have many weaknesses and are easily targeted. When the gap between the enemy and us is large, this extreme advantage is obvious and can quickly determine the outcome. But when the gap between the enemy and us is small, it is a competition of who has fewer flaws. Therefore, reducing your own weaknesses and balancing your own abilities can reduce the probability of being defeated. You know, people only have one life, and maybe if you fail once, there will be no second time. Therefore, Qishuang doesn't want to give others a chance. But a person's energy is limited after all, and Qishuang doesn't have that much energy to study and research everything. Take escape techniques for example. Throughout the ninja world, it is rare to find ninjas who know more than 4 escape techniques. Most of them only know 3 or 2 techniques. Therefore, he chose to develop his own talents and specialties in depth. But this does not mean that he does not understand the importance of balanced abilities. That is why he developed various functional techniques such as Ice Escape Instant Body for escaping and raiding, Ice Sealing Technique for restricting opponents, and Seal Burial Technique for killing opponents on the basis of Ice Escape techniques. He has been balancing his own abilities to the maximum extent on the existing basis. Just like what Jiraiya taught Naruto, if you can't learn illusion techniques, can't you learn to solve illusion techniques? There is no need to learn everything. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Opposition. The so-called balance does not mean omnipotence. It means being able to make up for one's own weaknesses or flaws. Qishuang has no talent for illusions, so he cannot force himself to learn illusions, but he can learn how to remove illusions. For example, if water escape is restrained by earth escape, he does not need to learn lightning escape to restrain earth escape. After all, the art is dead, and people are alive. Since water escape is restrained by earth escape, why use water escape to fight against people? Can't you just hide and avoid it? There are many ways to solve the risk of restraint. It is not necessary to spend a lot of effort to learn lightning escape countermeasures. As long as there is a solution, it is enough. Or like his unremarkable physical skills. In terms of skills alone, his physical skills are only at the level of ordinary Jonin, which is far behind the melee machines like the Kagura clan. But now he has Ice Escape Chakra mode. With this technique alone, he can make up for his shortcomings in physical skills. Even if his physical skills are ordinary, there are few people who can fight him in close combat. Because those fools who don't know how to live or die and want to fight him in close combat will be frozen into ice sculptures by his icy aura. Therefore, he doesn't need to spend unnecessary time and energy practicing physical skills to make up for his weaknesses. This is balance. Then, Qishuang asked the green-haired witch again, Dragon Heart, what does this Dragon Heart seal have to do with dragons? Xianx and Shenji smiled and said, no, we just think Dragon Heart sounds better than Snake Heart. Hearing this, Qishuang couldn't help but frown. Xianx and Snake G continued, the purpose of this sealing technique is to make it obey the will of the caster and open it as he wishes, so it is called Dragon Heart. And because it also has the ability to absorb the surrounding natural energy to replenish the seal. As long as the seal is not completely damaged or removed, it can absorb natural energy to recover itself after opening. In theory, it is a permanent and continuous seal. Hearing this, Qishuang was so happy that she almost jumped up. That's great. He was so excited that he hurriedly urged Xianz and Shenji, Master, please teach me quickly. Xianz and Shenji nodded and then began to explain the key to the Dragon Heart seal to Qishuang. In the Hidden Mist Village, at dawn, many adult ninjas gathered in the Terumi clan's base. In addition to their own ninjas, there were also many ninjas from affiliated families. They all gathered here in response to the order of the Terumi clan's young patriarch, Terumi Mei. They were ready to put pressure on the Kizuna clan to release the imprisoned heads of various families or leaders of forces. As time went on, more and more ninjas gathered. A rough count showed that there were no less than 3,000 of them. The power of the Terumi clan can be seen. On the other hand, after receiving the reply from Terumi Mei, the Hashigaki clan also gathered many forces under their command at the same time. Although the number of their affiliated families was not as large as that of the Terumi clan, they should not be underestimated as a whole. Soon, they gathered more than 2,000 ninjas. When it was bright, many Terumi stood on the platform, pointed in the direction of the Mizukage building, and gave a loud order. Let's go. Then, all the ninjas walked out of the Terumi clan's residence silently and rushed to the central area of the Kirigakure village like a torrent. And those retail investors who had already heard the news closed their doors and windows tightly, hiding behind and quietly watching this group of heroic ninjas. The entire street was empty. Soon, the torrent from the Terumi clan encountered another torrent on the way to the central area. That was the force led by the Hoshigaki clan. However, the two sides seemed to have a tacit understanding and naturally gathered together and continued to rush to the Mizukage building. When the forces led by the two clans arrived downstairs of the Mizukage building, there were already countless ninjas there to set up a defensive formation. That was the Kirigakure's elite troops belonging to the Kirigakure clan. Because the 4th generation neglected political affairs and lacked prestige in the entire Kirigakure village, and the coup d'etat caused all the Kirigakure senior officials to be imprisoned, resulting in various different voices in the Kirigakure troops, making it difficult to mobilize. Although Afei could not mobilize the Kirigakure troops to start a war directly in order to prevent a possible civil war, it was still no problem to mobilize the troops for passive defense in the name of the Mizukage. It was precisely because they could not directly mobilize the Kirigakure troops to start a war that the Kirigakure clan did not take down the Terumi and Hoshigaki clans in the chaos. After imprisoning many senior officials, they could not do it by their own strength. Therefore, they chose to cooperate with the Kirigakure's elite troops to launch a defense. Stop. As the order was issued, the troops of Terumi and Hoshigaki stopped about 20 meters away from the defensive formation of Kirigakure. At the same time, the personnel on both sides secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Under the orders from above, they had to participate in such a dangerous game, but they actually did not want to go to war with each other. It has only been a few years since the last war, and everyone has not had enough of the peaceful days, so no one is willing to start a war. Now, Terumi and Hoshigaki's troops stopped approaching and had no intention of taking direct action, which made the lower level personnel on both sides breathe a sigh of relief. Saved a life. Then, Terumi Mei and a blue-skinned shark-faced man slowly walked out of the formation. That was the young patriarch of the Hoshigaki clan, Kiichi Hoshigaki. The people of the Kid family did such a dirty thing, and they don't even dare to show their faces? Where is your family head? Kiichi Hoshigaki looked at the defense formation on the opposite side and scolded unceremoniously. Upon hearing this, the Zili troops of the Kirigakure immediately turned their eyes to the formation of the Kid family. The Kid family detained many high-level officials in one fell swoop. Although the results were remarkable, the means were not glorious and could not be put on the stage. Now, being found by someone, the Kid family, as a wealthy family in the Kirigakure village, did not even have a say, which inevitably made people laugh. Even the people of the Hazuki clan could not help but bury their heads after hearing Kiichi Hoshigaki's sarcasm. At this moment, accompanied by a cough, a thin young man carrying a leaf-shaped broadsword walked out of the Hazuki family's formation. Ahem. The clan leader has other important matters, so let me entertain you too. When Mei Terumi and Kiichi Hoshigaki saw each other, their pupils shrank slightly. Because that was Hazuki Maingetsu of the Hazuki family, a genius who could control multiple ninja swords. If he had not met the nearly invincible Yagura Karatachi, the person who would become the 4th Mizukage today might be this talented young man. At the same time, seeing Hazuki Maingetsu come out, the formation behind Mei Terumi, which was originally a bit noisy, immediately fell silent. No one would doubt the power of Hazuki Maingetsu. Although he lost to the current 4th Mizukage, seeing the morale of her own side drop, Mei Terumi mustered up her courage, took a step forward, and shouted loudly, "Maingetsu Kizuna, release the detained people. Otherwise, no one from your Kizuna clan will be able to leave today." Chapter 379 Confrontation. Ahem. Maingetsu Kizuki coughed twice and said faintly, "Don't be so confident. Although our Maingetsu family is not as strong as your two families, don't forget it. The Mizukage is still here." As he said that, he glanced at the Kirigakure direct troops next door, representing the Mizukage. Under the current situation, it is difficult to mobilize the Kirigakure direct troops to take the initiative to attack and wipe out the Hoshigaki and Terumi families, but passive defense is no problem. Even if those guys are unwilling to obey the order, once the Terumi and Hoshigaki families take action, they will never sit idly by. Because the meaning of their existence is to protect the Kirigakure. Maingetsu Kizuki's words were light and seemed to be weak, but no one dared to ignore it. If he was a sword that had been unsheathed a few years ago, he is now a sword that is ready to be unsheathed at any time. Although he is no longer as sharp as he was in the past, Terumi Mei understands that main Jetsuki Zuki is even more terrifying. Because he cannot see the danger, he needs to be on guard all the time. As if inspired by her courage, Kiichi Hoshigaki followed behind her and shouted, "Where is the 4th generation? Why doesn't the 4th generation come out to see us? We need an explanation. Why is all this happening?" As soon as the voice fell, the people behind him shouted in unison, "We need an explanation. The 4th generation. We need an explanation. The 4th generation." At this moment, a cold voice came from the Mizukage building. They were plotting evil and intended to rebel, so I and the Kido family joined forces to take them down. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, but saw a thin figure standing on the windowsill on the 2nd floor, looking straight at them. Someone immediately recognized that it was the 4th generation Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, Yagura. In order to reduce everyone's suspicion, Afei quietly hid aside and manipulated, and this time he did not stand with Yagura. And the so-called rebellion was also his hint to Yagura. As for whether Hoshigaki and Terumi believed it or not, it didn't matter. The important thing was that he needed an excuse to make the cooperation between the Mizukage and the Kido family have a reasonable reason. Then he can use it to shut up those ignorant people and let the Mizukage take the side of justice, so that he can better control the situation. Otherwise, Yagura, who has lost the support of the people, can't mobilize the direct troops of the Kirigakure village at all, and there will only be a Mizukage in name only. It is even unknown whether those guys will set up another Mizukage. Only when everything goes smoothly, the card called Mizukage in his hand will be of value. Hearing such a ridiculous statement from the Mizukage, Terumi and Hoshigaki's party immediately exploded. "You are talking nonsense. This is slander." Not only did they not believe it, but even the direct troops of Kirigakure cast a suspicious look at the Mizukage building. They can understand that some forces want to rebel, but it is too incredible that the entire Kirigakure upper echelons were wiped out by the Hazuki family and the Mizukage. You know, the part of people detained by the Hazuki family can involve nearly 70% of the forces in the entire Kirigakure village. So many people want to rebel, and only the Hazuki family is left to keep themselves clean, which is too bizarre. If they hadn't seen the Mizukage safe and sound, they would have suspected that it was the Hazuki family that was plotting a rebellion. After a long while, when everyone had vented their anger, Terumi Mei raised her hand to signal everyone to be quiet, and then shouted to the 4th Hokage on the Mizukage building, "Lord Mizukage, I think there must be some misunderstanding here. Everything requires evidence. You can't just imprison you so rashly. Please give the order to release them. I think everyone will forgive you." Terumi Mei almost gritted her teeth as she uttered the last sentence. She will never forget her father who died tragically in the coup yesterday. But she is now the leader of the Terumi clan, and she can't act impulsively because of her own selfish desires. If the Terumi clan and Hazuki and others fight because of a momentary impulse, then no matter who wins or loses, the Terumi clan will suffer heavy losses or even be completely destroyed. In addition to her main family, there are many other affiliated families that trust them and follow the Terumi clan. Once the war breaks out, it will be a disaster for these small families. There is also the Hidden Mist Village. From the comparison of the power of the two sides, the gap is not very big. Once the war starts, the Hidden Mist Village will surely become a scorched earth. It will fall apart in a matter of days. Whether it is their Terumi clan, the Hoshigaki clan, or the Kido clan, they can't afford such consequences. Because a clan cannot become a village. The so-called village is the product of the union of various forces. No matter which side wins the battle, the Hidden Mist Village will no longer exist. They don't want to go to war unless it is absolutely necessary. The Kido side is the same. Hearing her words, the crowd behind her was indignant, and everyone shouted loudly, "Release them! Release them!" At this time, a teasing voice came from the Mizukage building. "Release them, no problem, but not now." Terumi Mei and others looked closely, but saw that the head of the Kido clan, Kido Masamune, walked to Yagura with a smug look on his face. The two stood side by side, which made people feel indescribable. What's even stranger is that Yagura didn't react to his rudeness at all, as if he didn't see it at all. If it was based on the past temper of this naughty Mizukage, it would be impossible for Hazuki Masamune to be so close to him. Weird. Really too weird. Then, Hazuki Masamune said righteously, they conspired to rebel, which is an unforgivable crime, but the Mizukage remembered their past contributions, and did not kill them all. As long as they reflect on their mistakes in prison, they will be released one day. After saying that, he clapped his hands twice, and 4 Miss Ninjas escorted 2 prisoners to the window. Terumi and Kiichi Hoshigaki took a closer look and immediately recognized that they were the heads of their 2 families. However, the 2 looked listless and not in a good condition. It was estimated that they were beaten up by the Hazuki clan. Then, I saw Hazumi Masamune take out 2 pieces of paper from his pocket, shook them in a signal, and said proudly to the people on Terumi and Hoshigaki's side, "This is the crime of the chiefs Terumi and Hoshigaki, and there are their autographs on it." As he said that, he handed it to the 2 subordinates next to him. Then, I saw the 2 Miss Ninjas flashing, jumping out of the Mizukage building, rushing out of their own defensive formation, and coming to Terumi Medi and Hoshigaki Kiichi, and handed the 2 crimes to them respectively. Although they knew that their family heads would definitely not admit to any crimes, Terumi Medi and Hoshigaki still took the crimes in their hands with suspicion. Looking more carefully, there was no mention of treason on it, but instead, it was nakedly written with various overbearing clauses. It was the interest division agreement written by the Hazumi family in the name of crimes. Chapter 380 Compromise. Hakatsu Masamune, what do you mean? Terumi shouted angrily. At the same time, the 2 Miss Ninjas from the Hakatsu clan quickly retreated. Upstairs, the Hakatsu clan leader sneered and said, "Little girl from the Terumi family, your clan leader has already signed a confession. What else are you dissatisfied with?" As he said this, he glanced at the Terumi clan leader and the Hoshigaki clan leader next to him. Now, the heirs of various large and small family forces have just taken power, but there must be many heads of the former clan leaders. In other words, the residual power of these people in his hands is still there, and they can still have a great coercive effect on the major forces. If he waits for a while, until these new guys have established their footholds and the old masters are forgotten, the people in his hands will not have such a great influence. Therefore, he must take this opportunity to redistribute the cake of the hidden mist village and grab a share from the plates of various forces. Let the Hakatsu family eat the largest share, and lay the foundation for the expansion of the family. Thoroughly grasp the overall situation of the entire hidden mist village. On the ground, after reading the so-called charges, Kiichi Hoshigaki frowned and whispered to the blue-skirted woman next to him, "Do you think these things are true or false?" As he said that, he waved the charges in his hand. After hearing this, Terumi gritted her teeth and said, "Whether it is true or false, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that the Kiddo family wants to weaken us and strengthen themselves. If we don't agree to these terms, they will definitely not be polite to the clan leader. What the Kiddo family is doing now is kidnapping." Hearing this, Kiichi Hoshigaki's face flashed a ruthless look, and whispered, What if the head of the family died? Then do we not have to give it? Not everyone is willing to do everything they can to rescue the heads or leaders of each family. They just have to come, because of the situation. Because if they don't come, they can't explain to the people below. Especially at this time, when they have just taken over the power, and have not yet established a firm foothold. If the head of the family or the leader is allowed to fall into the hands of the Ghostlight family, and no efforts are made to rescue them, it will chill the hearts of the people below, especially the hearts of the former loyal subordinates. If you are not careful, there may be a risk of being overthrown, and beaten down again. Therefore, the new rulers who are appointed in times of crisis must raise the banner of rescue. At least, it must be so on the surface. Otherwise, it will be impossible to convince the public. Hearing this, Terumi Mei looked at him deeply and said expressionlessly, "You don't have to worry about this. If the Ghostlight family wanted to kill people, they would have done it yesterday, and would not have stayed until now. Their goal is to leave living people to hold us hostage. If they really kill them all, not only will they not be able to negotiate with us, but the Kirigakure's elite troops will also be completely in chaos and unable to mobilize. At that time, there will be no scruples. Our two families will join forces, and the Ghostlight family will be the only one left and can't resist. Only the living senior officials and leaders of the forces are useful to the Ghostlight family. The dead are just useless corpses. So you mean you want to agree to the terms here? Kiichi Hoshigaki asked tentatively. Although the Hazuki family did not ask for everything, the various treaties recorded in this charge involved all aspects of the Hoshigaki family, such as shops, docks, shipping, personnel, etc. A rough estimate is that at least 1/3 of the resources of the Hoshigaki family were taken away. In other words, once they agreed to it, the power of the Hoshigaki family would shrink a lot. In addition to their family, there is also the Terumi family. Although the Hazuki family does not seem to get much, these resources will all belong to Hazuki. With the increase and decrease of one, Hazuki will soon develop into the first family of the entire Kirigakure. By then, even if Terumi and Hoshigaki join forces, it will be impossible to compete with Hazuki. This is a naked conspiracy. Do you dare not give it to me? Medi Terumi glanced at him, and then her eyes fell on the head of the Terumi family upstairs, and continued, I have carefully examined it, and the signature on it is indeed the handwriting of our head of the family. In other words, agreeing to these terms also reflects the intention of our heads of each family. After that, she waved the charge in her hand in a demonstrative manner. Then, Kiichi Hoshigaki opened the charge again, and set his eyes on the signature at the bottom. He carefully examined it several times and finally confirmed that it was indeed the handwriting of his own head of the family. How is it possible? How could the head of the family not see the conspiracy of the Kizuna family and agree to such an impolite request? He said in disbelief. Looking at the figures on the Mizukage building, Medi Terumi sighed and said, of course they saw through the conspiracy of the Hazuki clan. But these treaties of the Hazuki clan are almost made to meet our bottom line. It can prevent us from being provoked into a desperate battle, and it can also maximize our weakening and strengthening. If they use some torture or other means, it will be difficult for the clan leaders to not agree to such a treaty. Because they can paralyze themselves, these treaties alone will not cause the families to be destroyed immediately. Then, she turned around and looked at the shark face next to her and continued, don't try to pretend that you don't know and don't want to fulfill the treaty. Once other people in the clan know that you didn't follow the orders of the head of the family, causing the head of the family to suffer at the hands of Hazuki, you should understand what the consequences will be. The influence of the old head of the family is still there. Although he has been captured by the Hazuki clan, the Hoshigaki clan will definitely still follow his orders for the time being. If Kiichi Hoshigaki, who has not yet established a firm foothold, refuses, I'm afraid he will be abolished by the people below immediately. Hearing such a warning, Kiichi Hoshigaki couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. At the moment, for the sake of the head of the family, he had almost no other choice but to compromise temporarily. He certainly couldn't fight, because the people under him didn't want to fight, and they were not sure of winning. Then, he loudly asked the head of the Kid clan, when will you release them? Kid Masamune didn't answer, but asked with interest, have you seen their crimes clearly? Terumi Medi and Hoshigaki Kiichi also didn't answer, but just clenched the crimes in their hands to express their consent. Seeing their thoughts, Hazuki Masamune laughed and said, Lord Mizukage said that these people have evil intentions and deserve to die. For their past merits, they will be spared from death, but they still need to repent in prison. Hearing this, Hoshigaki Kiichi was furious and said angrily, are you kidding us? Release them or not? Upstairs, Hazuki Masamune shook his head gently and said with a smile of victory, little guys from the Hoshigaki clan, don't be anxious. Lord Mizukage said that, if they repent in prison for 3 to 5 years, they will be able to come out. Hearing this, Hoshigaki Kiichi couldn't help but feel secretly happy. Such a long time is enough for him to completely control the entire Hoshigaki clan and eliminate the influence of the old patriarch. People's hearts are always complicated. Chapter 381 unfinished. Then, Hazuki Masamune said to the formation behind the two people, as for the charges of the rest of the families, they will be delivered one by one later. We will take good care of your leaders or heads of families, and will never let them get into trouble. Please feel free to retreat and wait patiently. If you are dissatisfied with the decision of the Mizukage-sama, don't blame my Hazuki family for being rude. His tone was grim, and his words were full of threats. Then, representatives of the various affiliated forces that Hazuki and Terumi belonged to surrounded Hoshigaki Kiichi and Terumi Mei. "Sir, what does Hazuki Masamune mean?" someone asked anxiously. They had not had time to see the so-called charges, so they felt that the words of the Hazuki clan leader were quite intriguing. "Take a look at this." Terumi Mei handed over the charges in her hand. After everyone passed it around, they soon understood the plan of the Hazuki family. "What is Lord Terumi Mei going to do?" someone asked in a low voice. "I can't make the decision on this matter. I have to take it back and discuss it with the elders of the tribe." The pretty woman in the blue skirt shook her head. However, she had a vague guess in her heart. For the safety of the tribe leader, the tribe should agree to the terms of the Ghostlight family. "Okay, everyone leave." Terumi Mei waved her hand and sent everyone away. Then, she shouted loudly to Ghostlight Masamune, "Where are the bodies? Where are the bodies of our fellow tribesmen who died yesterday? Hand them all over me." In addition to asking the Ghostlight family for an explanation, she also planned to ask for the many dead people. Although there were only more than 100 dead people, they all had their own families. For example, her father. If the heads of the families and leaders could not be saved, at least the bodies of the dead should be brought back to comfort the living. It is impossible that the people are gone, and even the bodies cannot be found. At the same time, the array behind her burst into calls again, demanding that the Ghostlight family return the bodies of the dead. Kizuna Masamune, who had been prepared for this, gestured to the mist ninja next to him, and several people immediately took the two clan leaders away. Then, he smiled and said to Terumi Mei, "Little girl of the Terumi family, don't be so angry. It's just a few corpses. I won't do anything to them." As soon as the voice fell, a mist ninja carrying a huge scroll walked out of the Kizuna family's defense array. He put the scroll on the ground and opened it, then quickly made a few seals, and pressed his palm on the open scroll. With a light bang, a cloud of white smoke floated from the scroll. When the smoke dispersed, everyone immediately saw dozens or hundreds of corpses lined up on the ground. The sharp-eyed guy immediately found a familiar face among the dead, and Terumi Mei also quickly found her father in the row of corpses. Seeing that the once kind middle-aged man had turned into a cold corpse, she couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. Then, she suppressed her grief, made a gesture pretending to be calm, and sent people to retrieve the bodies one by one. On the other side, Kiichi Hoshigaki, who represented the Hoshigaki clan, also sent people to recover the bodies of the deceased. As everything settled, Terumi Mei no longer had the heart to confront Hoshigaki and the others here. After she winked at Kiichi Hoshigaki, she said to Hoshigaki Masamune hatefully, "This matter has not been resolved yet. There will be a time when your Hoshigaki family will pay back." Then, she turned around and called to the Terumi clan behind her, "Let's retreat." Hearing this, although they were very unwilling, everyone still obeyed the order and slowly evacuated the Mizukage building in an orderly manner. Then, the Hoshigaki clan also slowly evacuated. So far, this time the Kirigakure coup ended with the Hoshigaki clan's great victory, and the Kirigakure village ushered in a new era. As for the 4th generation Mizukage, except for a limited number of people, almost no one knew that he had become someone else's puppet. The entire Kirigakure village has almost become a one-man show for the Kirigakure family. On the other hand, after returning to the base, Terumi Mei did not have time to bury her father, and hurriedly summoned the elders of the clan to open a meeting to discuss the various treaties of the Kirigakure clan. In the end, after repeated discussions, the former head of the family still had the upper hand. Everyone reluctantly reached a consensus and agreed to the demands of the Kirigakure clan. Because, at this time, they can no longer start internal strife and must unite to face the outside world. Moreover, they also saw through all the calculations of the Kirigakure clan. With the division of rights and interests, Terumi's family will become weaker and weaker, and the Kirigakure family will become stronger and stronger. By then, they will no longer have the qualifications to fight desperately. Fortunately, this change in strength will not emerge overnight, but is a long process. Therefore, they must make a thorough settlement with the Kirigakure family before the situation deteriorates completely. It's just that now, they are not ready for a full-scale war, and they still need time to prepare. Agreeing to the overlord treaty of the Ghost Light family can not only stabilize the former head of the family, but also buy time for themselves to prepare for the war. It is just a temporary delaying tactic. It is not ready to give up resistance and let others believe them. The same discussion also appeared in the various affiliated family forces under the Hoshigaki and Terumi families. However, not all forces are like the Terumi family. Some are simply ready to completely abandon the former head of the family or leader, and ignore the terms sent by the Ghost Light family. Some even have strange thoughts, and are ready to abandon the dark, and join the light, and change their family. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that the Ghost Light family is in its heyday. If they can switch to the Ghost Light faction, it means that they not only do not have to divide the benefits, but also can pick up some residues from the mouth of Ghost Light and completely avoid the hostility with Ghost Light. But in this way, it means that they are branded as traitors. With such a brand on their backs, no matter where they go, they will not be welcomed. Even if they were accepted by the Ghost Light, it would be difficult for them to truly integrate into the clan, and they would only be trampled at the bottom of the Ghost Light faction forever. In the end, there were still some small families that could not keep their original intentions and switched to the Ghost Light faction. In this regard, the Hoshigaki and Terumi families did not say much, but carefully remembered the appearance of these traitors, waiting for the day of complete reckoning. On the other hand, Terumi Mei instructed the backbone of the clan, avoid the intelligence network of the Kirigakure, quietly send the children of the clan out of the Kirigakure village, and find a remote place to settle them down. At present, the Kirigakure village is in chaos and all departments are almost paralyzed. They have the ability to avoid the Kirigakure intelligence network. If it were normal times, there would be no such possibility. Then, she added, also arrange some adults to accompany them. Remember, don't send too many people at a time, and transfer them in multiple times, to avoid attracting the attention of the Ghost Light family. As for the elders in the clan, she paused and gritted her teeth and said, just leave them all behind. War always kills people. The Kirigakure village, which was originally the rear base, will become their battlefield. It was no longer safe here. Therefore, they had to move the children and leave a legacy for the Terumi tribe. The elders in the tribe were already old, so it would not make much sense to evacuate them. Rather than wasting energy on them, it was better to keep them and squeeze out the last bit of value. Although this decision was ruthless and cruel, she had to think about the entire tribe. I believe they would understand her painstaking efforts. Chapter 382 Whirlpool. Although for ordinary people, ninja is a profession that is picked out of 100, but for a family like this with bloodline limit, almost everyone is a ninja. Even though many members of the clan have never been to a ninja school, many of them have learned to use chakra by osmosis while living in an environment surrounded by many ninjas in the clan. They are not inferior to ninjas who receive orthodox education in ninja schools. This is the foundation of a large family, which is something that ordinary families cannot compare with. Therefore, even the elderly in the clan can add some combat power to the Terumi clan, and they are not cannon fodder for death. How are the rest of the supplies prepared? Terumi Mei asked the assistant next to her. Whether it is weapons supply or food reserves, they are all necessary element of war. In addition, living under the same roof with the Kizuna clan, it is not an easy task to avoid their eyes and collect enough supplies. Therefore, they need time to buffer. Report to the adults. It is far from the expected number. The assistant replied in a low voice. Is there any movement from the Kizuna family? Terumi thought for a while and asked. The assistant hurriedly said, the Hazuki family is also secretly collecting supplies. It seems that they are also on guard against us. What about the prison? Have you figured out the guard deployment and the location of the hostages? Terumi Mei continued to ask. Not yet. The assistant quietly lowered her head. Hearing this, Terumi Mei suddenly felt like a big stone was stuffed into her chest, and she was extremely panicked. It has been a long time since the last negotiation with Hazuki, and the clan has gradually accepted the fact that the clan leader cannot return. But the Hazuki clan has hostages in hand, and Terumi and the Hoshigaki family are a little cautious and cannot make up their minds to completely abandon them for the time being. Therefore, she thought of taking advantage of the time to prepare for the war, to find out the truth about the prison, and then try to rescue the hostages. In this way, they can fight the Hazuki family without any scruples. Not only that, if the other Kirigakure higher level officials can be rescued, the power of the 4th generation can be held hostage. Even if the Kirigakure's elite troops cannot be pulled to their side, they can also keep them out of it and stop interfering in the civil war of the 3 major families. By then, Terumi and Hishigaki would be 2 against 1, and their chances of winning would naturally be much greater. However, for such an important matter, the people below had been investigating for so long, but still found nothing. She couldn't help but feel exhausted. Beside, seeing that the young clan leader looked grim, the assistant hurriedly said, "Please give us a little more time. We will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." Terumi Mei closed her eyes helplessly and waved away. "Hurry up, the situation in the village is getting more and more tense." Because of the overlord terms of the Hashigaki family, Terumi ceded and compromised with the Hashigaki family. But some problems cannot be solved with just one sentence. For a senior leader like her, because she is in charge of the overall situation, everything in Terumi's family is just a pile of words and data on paper to her. The ceding of those rights and interests did not make her feel too personal. But for the grassroots clansmen, that may be everything they rely on for their lives. The decision of the top leaders led to their being plundered by the Hashigaki clan, which is a real loss of interests. Their lives have become difficult as a result. Their attitude towards the Ghostlight clan has also changed from anger at the capture of the clan leader to a more direct hatred for interests. Therefore, since then, there has been constant friction between the lower level personnel of the Ghostlight and Terumi and Hishigaki families. Although the upper level tried their best to restrain, casualties were inevitable. With the casualties, the contradiction between the 2 sides became more serious. Everyone has a few relatives and friends, especially big families like Ghostlight, Hashigaki, and Terumi, where the group is more serious. When someone dies, someone will take revenge. The chain of hatred is endless. In recent days, despite the efforts of the 3 families to restrain themselves, many people from the clansmen and their affiliated forces have died one after another. What's more, because they can't beat or do anything to their enemies, they vent their grievances around their enemies, and even the general public is not spared. This has led to more innocent people being dragged into the vortex of hatred between the 3 families. Because of the chaotic situation and the withdrawal of manpower from each household, the law enforcement team that maintains order has become a mere formality and can do nothing at all. Or, the 4th generation who cooperated with Hazuki for some unknown reason never thought of doing anything. Therefore, the situation in Kirigakure has become increasingly serious and has become uncontrollable. Every day, many corpses can be seen lying in the streets and alleys. The entire Kirigakure seems to have become a lawless place. Order is broken, and human relations are scattered. The villagers are in panic, and even many natives have begun to flee. Hazuki Masamune, who discovered this situation, is also very worried. It is impossible for the Hazuki family to support the entire huge Kirigakure. They also need a huge population base. What he wants is to defeat the Hazuki and Terumi families, absorb their forces, and then naturally take over the position of Mizukage from Afei. But judging from the current situation, even if he defeats Hashigaki and Terumi in the future, he can only get a dilapidated ruin, and Kirigakure will exist in name only. Then, he found Afei hiding in the Mizukage building. Quickly mobilize the troops of Kirigakure village, strengthen the population control of the village, and prohibit abnormal population flow. Masamune Kizuna said seriously to Afei lying on the desk. "No problem. I will follow your orders." Afei quickly got up and gave him a very funny salute. He saw every bit of change in Kirigakure village, and he was in a very good mood. As long as the contradictions between the 2 sides accumulate to the highest point, the entire Kirigakure village will turn into a scorched earth. And now, that time is not far away. Soon, Afei mobilized the direct troops of Kirigakure village in the name of Mizukage, and strengthened the control of population flow according to Masamune Kizuna's instructions. Although this method cannot completely stop the loss of population, it has also curbed the speed of population loss to a certain extent. It can be regarded as a small consolation. After dealing with Masamune Kizuna's affairs, Afei glanced at Chiagura and said, "Good friend, let's go and take a look at the Anbu." After taking over the power of Mizukage, he was not idle. In addition to watching the show and inquiring about the whereabouts of Nana Qishuang, he was also secretly recruiting talents for the organization. There are not many people in the Hidden Mist village who are worthy of his attention, and the Ziguishan Puffer demon from the Anbu is one of them. He is the owner of the big sword Samehada, and is also the most difficult one among the 7 ninja swordsmen. Coincidentally, there was also a ninja sword user in their organization, named Biwajuzo, who was the owner of the broken sword beheading sword. Unfortunately, he died at the hands of Yagura when he and Uchiha Itachi came to the Land of Water to perform a mission last time. Although Biwajuzo's strength is not as good as his, he is also a good player in the ninja world. It is a pity that he died like this. However, their organization has not been established for a long time, and they are in great need of high-end combat power. The death of Biwajuzo will inevitably require someone to fill the vacancy. So he set his sights on the other ninja sword users in the Hidden Mist village. Chapter 383 Accident. Originally, he was more optimistic about Maingetsu Kizuki, the genius who could control multiple ninja swords, but as far as the current situation was concerned, Maingetsu Kizuki had no chance of betraying the village or the clan. He could only think about recruiting Maingetsu Kizuki. Therefore, he could only settle for the second best and set his sights on Ziguishan Pufferfish Ghost. Pufferfish Ghost worked in the Kirigakure Anbu and won over many people with his authority, but compared with a wealthy family like the Kizuki family, it was still far behind. Whether in terms of connections or resources, he was far inferior to such a big family. With his own strength alone, it was impossible to support a force comparable to such a wealthy family. Originally, during the last battle for the Mizukage, he attracted many scattered forces to invest with the aura of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and even became the largest force in the entire Kirigakure village. But on the battlefield, he encountered Maingetsu Kizuki, and the result was a complete defeat. The forces behind him, which had no cohesion, naturally scattered like monkeys when the tree fell, and were beaten back to their original form again. Therefore, in the vortex of the struggle between the 3 major families this time, he had no choice but to watch from the sidelines, and could not participate in it. However, no matter what the result is, it means that the various forces in the Hidden Mist village will be reshuffled again. And he, an ambitious man who once aspired to be the Mizukage, will definitely be further away from the center of power. It was okay before the coup of the Kido family, because the 4th generation was a neutral person and did not manage political affairs much, so the situation of the entire Hidden Mist was still similar to that of the 3rd generation. But the coup of the Kido family completely changed everything, and the Hidden Mist village almost became a one-man show for Kido. As the Kido family placed people in the Anbu, his power was slowly divided and shrunk, and his life became more and more difficult. After he saw that the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost was frustrated, so he had the idea of recruiting him. Moreover, before this, he had already tried the Puffer Ghost twice, and felt that the other party's heart was shaken, so he was ready to formally recruit him. In an underground passage of the Anbu, a blue shark-faced man suddenly rushed out from the shadows, and launched a surprise attack on a passing orange-haired fat man. Sensing the movement behind him, the orange-haired fat man immediately grabbed the hilt of the knife with his backhand, and without looking back, he turned around and slashed with the long weapon tied with bandages on his back. Unfortunately, the long sword in the blue shark-faced man's hand was much shorter than the bandaged weapon in the fat man's hand. Although he had the advantage of the first move, he was hit by the opponent's bandaged weapon first, because of the distance. With a splash, the blue shark-faced man was immediately cut in half by the orange-haired fat man, and turned into clear water, and sprinkled in the canal next to him. Water clone. Seeing this scene, the orange-haired fat man frowned slightly. At this moment, another blue shark-faced man jumped out of the canal again, holding a long sword, and stabbing the orange-haired fat man's throat. "You are not dead yet?" Seeing the familiar face, the orange-haired fat man screamed, and quickly blocked the bandaged weapon in front of him. Ding. The long sword was still a bit slower after all, and did not pierce the target's throat, but only landed on the bandage weapon. The swift stab made the collision of the two weapons sound like the collision of metal and stone. However, Sharkface had the advantage of sneak attack after all, and he was also physically strong. Although he did not kill his opponent directly, he still used the momentum of the impact to knock the orange-haired fat man who was hastily blocking back again and again. Are you surprised, Master Puffer? Sharkface held his opponent tightly and sneered unceremoniously. The orange-haired fat man who was pressed against the tip of his sword was one of the leaders of the Anbu, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen. Since you survived, why did you come back to seek death, Qishuang? Behind the bandage weapon, the Puffer Demon narrowed his eyes. He tried his best to keep his heels, but his legs did not obey his command at all, and he still retreated backwards involuntarily. Because he had a root of illness after the battle with Might Day, and was severely injured by Maingetsu Kizuki, his body was completely damaged, and could only recover to 70% of his peak. In addition, as he grew older, his physical functions declined. At this moment, facing this young Hoshigaki ninja, he felt a little powerless. The Kirigakure ninja has always been revengeful. How can this fatal disaster be resolved, Master Fugu? The Hoshigaki ninja named Qishuang gritted his teeth. He was ordered to escort a team of intelligence personnel, but he never thought that he would be intercepted by Konoha ninjas halfway. If he could not breathe in water and dive directly to the bottom of the river to avoid being hunted down, otherwise, there would be no possibility of survival. Judging from the situation at the time, the Konoha ninjas should have come prepared and knew their movement route in advance. Obviously, there was a problem within them, and someone tipped off Konoha, causing him to be intercepted. Not many people knew about his escort mission. In addition to the intelligence officers he escorted, there was only Zabuza and Puffer Ghost who assigned him the mission. At that time, all the intelligence officers had died, and they had no motivation to put themselves in danger. The traitor could only be his immediate superior, Zabuza and Puffer Ghost. After retreating more than 10 steps in a row, until he was forced to the canal, Puffer Ghost finally stabilized his steps and said viciously, "Since you are looking for death, then leave your life." In order to eliminate the people planted by the Kizuna family and consolidate his power in the Anbu, Puffer Ghost chose to take the risk of borrowing the power of Konoha to eliminate dissidents. Therefore, in the escort mission assigned to Qishuang, the intelligence officers inside were almost all from Kizuna's faction. As for Hoshigaki Qishuang, he was just a chess piece he discarded casually. Although he was reluctant to give up this most capable subordinate, he still chose to discard it. Because he didn't want to arouse suspicion. The people who died could not only be from Kizuna's faction, but also his people. And Hoshigaki Qishuang was his victim. But he never thought that, after being ambushed by Konoha and almost dying, Hoshigaki Qishuang actually escaped alive. In order to prevent the Hazuki family from hearing anything from Qishuang, he had to make this guy completely dead. Otherwise, once the matter was exposed, not only would the Hazuki family not forgive him, but the 4th generation would also not be able to explain. Because this is the crime of treason, a capital crime, there will never be a place for him in the Hidden Mist village again. Hoshigaki Qishuang must die. As the killing intent grew, he injected chakra into the bandage weapon in his hand, and immediately saw the bandage break, and black barbs popped out from it, blocking Qishuang's long sword. That was his big sword Samehuda. Immediately afterwards, there was a crisp bang, but it was the pufferfish ghost who took advantage of the moment, when the Samehuda barb stuck to the long sword, twisted the blade slightly, and with the help of the two peoples wrestling, broke Qishuang's long sword. Unexpectedly, his sword would be broken so easily, and Qishuang quickly dropped the hilt and retreated. After breaking the opponent's sword, the pufferfish slashed with his sword, but was still a beat too slow, and the barbs of Samehuda barely cut through Qishuang's chest armor. Chapter 384 Beheading. At the same time, Qishuang took out 5 explosive kunai from his ninja bag at the moment of jumping back, and shot them directly at the face of the pufferfish. Seeing the explosive talisman tied to the end of the kunai, the pufferfish could not help but tremble in his heart, and subconsciously hurriedly put away his sword to defend himself, using the wide blade of Samehuda to block himself behind. Although many years have passed, he still can't forget the huge explosion of 1 million explosive talismans of Kizuna Man'yu. Because of that battle, he was left with a shadow of fear of explosive talismans in his heart. Every time he saw someone using an explosive talisman, he was very nervous. Boom boom boom. Along with the deafening explosion, the blazing red flames and the pungent smoke, a huge force came from the other side of the blade again. The pufferfish almost lost his grip on the handle of the knife and was blown away by the impact of the explosion with the knife. Before he could come to his senses, 2 more iron chains flew out from the smoke in front of him like lightning, and with a clang, they locked his 2 arms on the left and right. As his body flew backwards, the iron chains were pulled out with it. There was only a slight clang, as if the length of the iron chain had reached its limit and could no longer be pulled out of the smoke. His body that flew backwards was dragged from midair into the canal. Then, the mocking voice of Hoshigaki Kisame came from the other side of the smoke. Do you think that, if I find you alone, I will not make any preparations and deliberately come to your door to die? You underestimate me too much, Master Pufferfish. He took advantage of the gap created by the explosion and locked Pufferfish's arms with iron chains in one fell swoop. Pufferfish, who fell into the canal, didn't care that he was soaked all over and hurriedly climbed up. Just as he was about to untie the iron chain wrapped around his hands, he saw that at the end of the iron chain, in an unnoticeable blind spot, there were still several detonating talismans hidden. More importantly, the detonating tag had been ignited. But this time, he couldn't dodge it. Boom boom boom. The roaring explosion sounded again, and the dazzling fire made the puffer ghost unable to open his eyes. He only felt a sharp pain in his arms, and then endless numbness, and his fingers were almost completely unconscious. Squeak. At this moment, a silver knife light cut through the smoke screen and pierced straight into his chest. It was Hoshigaki Kisame who took advantage of the smoke screen and stabbed him. You are old, Master Puffer Ghost. Kisame pulled out his long sword with a grin, and then kicked the chubby body of the Puffer Ghost to the shore. The Puffer Ghost vomited blood and struggled to get up, but he felt that his hands were completely powerless, and he couldn't even hold his beloved Sumehada. The old era has passed, and the new era is about to come. Kisame walked calmly to the canal bank and cut the 2 tendons of the Puffer Ghost. The Pufferfish Ghost, whose arms were injured and legs were disabled, could no longer struggle. He could only lie on the ground in fear, looking at the approaching shark face, spitting blood from his mouth, unable to say a word. Kisame slowly squatted beside him, looked at the dying orange-haired fat man, and sneered, "As your most capable subordinate, how could I not know that you are afraid of the detonating talisman?" As he said that, he knocked on the iron chain still wrapped around the Pufferfish Ghost's arm, and continued, "In addition to this iron chain, I also buried 9 mechanical traps in this passage, all of which are traps, based on detonating talismans. It's a pity that your weakness has exceeded my imagination, and none of those traps were used." After that, he shook his head with regret. Seeing the Pufferfish Ghost looking at the end of the passage expectantly from time to time, Kisame opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of triangular teeth, and said, "Are you still expecting someone to come to rescue you? Don't dream. I have killed all the Anbu Mist ninjas on duty in advance. No one will come unless it is time for rotation. Otherwise, the noise made by those few detonating tags I just used is enough to attract them. That is to say, now that the situation in Kirigakure is chaotic, the order has collapsed, and each department is busy with its own affairs, and the number of Anbu personnel has been sharply reduced. Kisame has the opportunity to take action. Otherwise, just killing all the Anbu Mist ninjas on duty is not something he can do easily alone." Then, he looked at the fat man on the ground, whose breath was getting weaker and weaker, and continued to talk to himself. "I've had enough. I've had enough of this hypocritical life. I'm responsible for protecting my companions, but I have to prevent information from leaking out and take the responsibility of killing my companions. This world is too hypocritical and cruel." He will never forget the Mist Ninja girl who was killed by him in the end, the only girl who had ever shown kindness to him. Her eyes before she died seemed to be questioning him. Why? Wasn't he here to protect her? He couldn't answer, but just mechanically performed his duties and cut the girl's throat. At that moment, he even had a trace of regret in his heart. But it was too late. They were surrounded by Konoha's large army, and even he himself might not be able to escape, let alone the Mist Ninja girl who was not good at fighting. He had no better choice, so he could only follow the rules of the Hidden Mist Village and kill her. It was from that time that he began to doubt whether his persistence was right or wrong. In the end, he got the answer. It was wrong. That was not the result he wanted. The purpose of killing his companions was to prevent information leakage, to protect the Hidden Mist Village, and to protect other people in the Hidden Mist Village. However, it was precisely for this reason that he had to carry out the task of killing his companions. A guy who wanted to protect his companions ended up killing the companions he was supposed to protect. It was ridiculous and ironic to think about it. So he denied everything that had happened before, denied this wrong village, and denied this hypocritical world. So, he came back. He was determined to say goodbye to the past. He wanted to break all causes and effects, and start a new life. Then, he looked at the pufferfish ghost who was already breathing more and less and said, "From now on, everything in the Hidden Mist Village has nothing to do with me. As for this sword," seeing Samehada next to him, he subconsciously stretched out his hand and grabbed the handle of the sword. While looking at it, he said, "This sword is the compensation from the Hidden Mist Village and you to me." The name of the 7 ninja swordsmen in the Hidden Mist Village is known to everyone. Therefore, even when he was young, he had dreamed of becoming a ninja sword user. Now, he happened to have a chance to get a ninja sword, so how could he let it go? Then, he injected his chakra into Samehada, trying to gain Samehada's recognition. Soon, he got Samehada's joyful thoughts in return. Because his chakra was very much in line with Samehada's appetite, it was exactly the kind that Samehada liked. Then, he raised Samehada and smashed the head of the pufferfish demon with one knife. At this moment, there was a rustling sound of footsteps from the other end of the passage. Qishuang looked in the direction of the sound, but saw 2 figures, one tall and one short, slowly walking out of the shadows. That's it. If I write too much about the part where Qishuang kills the pufferfish demon, you will complain again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 The Wind Rises. In the Langdi cave, looking at Qishuang who was a little absent-minded, Ichijimaheim was surprised and said, "What's wrong with you today? Why do you always look absent-minded?" Qishuang rubbed his temples and frowned. "I don't know why, my eyelids keep twitching, and my heart feels like a big stone is pressing on it. I always feel that something bad is going to happen." "Bad things?" Ichijimaheim looked at him in surprise, thought for a while and said, "We immortals are the group of people closest to the will of the world. The world gives us power, and we use the power given by the world to solve its problems. Therefore, we are more likely to be valued by the world than ordinary people. The reason why you have such a premonition is probably that the world is giving you a warning." After listening to the words of the little witch, Qishuang was thoughtful. The so-called warning must be that something related to oneself is about to happen. And he was in Langdi cave. Except for Zinai and Wansh, he did not cause any trouble, and he got along well with the 4 immortals. But even if Zinai and Wansh joined forces, they could not do anything to him. It was not worth the world's warning at all. Apart from this, the only people who were closely related to him were the Hidden Mist Village. Could it be that Obito has already made a move? He couldn't help but think silently. Judging from the time, it was almost time for Obito to take over the Hidden Mist Village. Only such a big event was worthy of warning the world. Do you know what it was? Seeing his uncertain face, Princess Ichikishima asked curiously. Nanashi raised her head and shook her head, saying, "There is a guess, but it's not specific." "Then what are you going to do?" The little Miko, who felt that there was something exciting to watch, had bright eyes. The long life forced them to find some fun for themselves frequently, to adjust their boring lives. Nanashi shrugged and said helplessly, "What else can I do? Let's complete the dragon heart seal first." He had almost mastered this sealing technique, and only the final practice was left. Hearing this, Princess Ichikishima waved her hands and said, "That kind of seal is rarely used even by ourselves. I really don't understand why you learned it. Generally speaking, this kind of triggered seal will be used in conjunction with a trap or a barrier. When the opponent deals with a trap or barrier, this type of seal will be triggered, releasing the hidden hand in the seal, causing an unexpected blow to the enemy. but with the strength of the 3 snake princesses, there is no need to set up any traps to deal with the enemy. As for the barrier, with their level, once it is set up, few can break it, and there is no need to set up the hidden hand with the dragon heart seal. This kind of seal is completely useless to them. Although Qishuang's strength is not as good as the 3 of them, after becoming an immortal, she is also a rare opponent. Therefore, they can't figure out why Qishuang learned such a useless seal. Qishuang shook her head and smiled. There is no useless spell in the world. The key lies in how we use it. Even an ordinary nail, if it is inserted into the opponent's heart, is enough to kill a person. Ichigo Shimahime, who was not interested in listening to his explanation, quickly covered her ears and said, I have completely taught you the dragon heart seal. The rest you can practice slowly. I want to go back and lie down for a while. Remember to call me if you need anything. After saying that, it tiptoed and immediately floated up, looking at the gate of the temple and slowly drifting away. Looking at its white figure gradually going away, Qishuang shook her head with a wry smile. Among the 3 snake princesses, only Ichigo Shimahime, the smallest one, was the most impatient. Then, he threw away all distracting thoughts, absorbed the natural energy around him, and put himself into the state of immortality. Then he mobilized chakra and natural energy to prepare to set up the dragon heart seal. He wanted to set up the dragon heart seal on himself. In the hidden mist village, just when Terumi was still worried about being a hostage, a middle-aged man wearing an eye mask came to the Terumi clan's residence. My name is King, and I'm a friend of your young clan leader. I have an urgent matter to see her. Please inform her. He stood outside the clan leader's mansion and said to the guards outside the door, wait a moment. One of the guards glanced at him, then quickly turned and left. Not long after, he saw him rushing back in a hurry. The young clan leader is waiting for you in the living room. Please follow me. The guard's tone was obviously much more polite, because he learned from Terumi that this Miss Ninja named King was her leader when she was young, and also the assistant of the Mizukage. Then, under the guidance of the guard, King walked in as he wished. Soon, he saw a pretty woman in a blue dress in the living room of Terumi's house. Long time no see, Captain. Terumi got up from the chair and greeted with a smile. Although Captain King is from the Mizukage clan, and the Mizukage clan has a murky relationship with the Hazuki clan, and the 2 sides have different positions, it does not hinder their personal relationship. I haven't seen you since the Hazuki clan's coup. I thought you had an accident. Terumi joked with a smile. King shook his head helplessly and whispered, you also know that the Mizukage has a close relationship with the Hazuki clan. It's not appropriate for me to meet you again at this time. Then why are you not afraid today? Terumi asked curiously. I have important information to tell you, King said with a serious face, and glanced at the people around him. Terumi understood what he meant, and immediately sent everyone away, saying, you all leave. Yes. Everyone responded in unison, and then quickly left. After everyone left, Terumi continued to ask in a low voice, what does the captain want to tell me? Glancing around again, King carefully took out a scroll from his pocket and whispered, after a long time of investigation, I finally found out the prison's guard deployment and traps, as well as the locations of many high-level prisoners. And I drew all of this on a map. As he said this, he gently handed the scroll over. What? Hearing this, Terumi was shocked. Seeing that everyone outside the house was looking at her in confusion, she quickly closed her mouth, and then lowered her voice, overjoyed and said, Captain, your map came just in time. The Terumi and Hashigaki families have been worrying about the detained hostages, but unfortunately the prison is very strict, and it is difficult for their people to get any useful information. As time goes by, the war preparations are more sufficient, and the day of war is getting closer. They urgently need to rescue the many detained hostages, and they are reluctant to abandon those people, unless it is absolutely necessary. King's map was a timely relief, completely solving their urgent problem. Once those people were rescued, the current situation would be alleviated immediately. Chapter 386 Falling into a Trap. Tonight I will call the people of the Hashigaki family, and we will go to the prison together to rescue everyone. Terumi said excitedly. King shook his head and said anxiously, the news that I came to your Terumi family must have reached the ears of the Kid family. Although they don't know why I came here now, they will definitely get suspicious after a long time. There is no time to lose. We'd better take action immediately and rescue the hostages before they can react. Seeing that the captain's anxious look did not seem fake, Terumi asked in confusion, "Captain, aren't you from the 4th generation? How can you help us rescue the hostages?" The things that King sent were very timely, which made her very happy, but after being happy, she had to doubt the other party's motives. Because this was not in line with what King should do. Seeing the doubt on her face, King smiled bitterly and said, "The 4th Hokage is just a child who has not grown up. Do you really expect him to govern the entire huge Kirigakure? He is the Mizukage in name, but the power of government affairs is in the hands of the other elders. Although we assistants work for him on weekdays, we are actually subordinates of the elders. Now that the elders are imprisoned, everyone is leaderless and has no choice but to obey the 4th Hokage." Terumi nodded secretly after hearing this. The 4th Hokage hardly manages government affairs on weekdays, and the entire Kirigakure village relies on the help of several elders. Therefore, he, the Mizukage, has no prestige. Although everyone is under his jurisdiction in name, in fact everyone directly obeys the elders. The current Mizukage line is better said to be the elder line taken over by the 4th Hokage. King continued, "We originally thought that the 4th generation had come to his senses, and he only imprisoned the elders, and did not kill them indiscriminately, so we did not deliberately oppose the 4th generation's taking over. But you have seen the current state of Kirigakure. It is getting worse day by day. It is completely different from what we imagined. Therefore, we decided to rescue the detained hostages and restore order in Kirigakure." Terumi looked at the map again and said in surprise, "Since you all have this idea, why don't we let the Kirigakure troops guarding the prison cooperate? If the Kirigakure troops could cooperate to release the people, there would be no need to go through so much trouble." King waved his hands and said, "How can it be that simple? Those guys in the troops only listen to the orders of the Mizukage, and our words are useless. I also found a few acquaintances with great difficulty, and it took a lot of effort to persuade them to open a secret passage for me to go in and out to rescue people. Time is urgent, you decide quickly." As he said that, he urged again. After weighing the pros and cons, Terumi finally made up her mind and nodded, saying, "Okay, I'll arrange some people right away. Let them rescue the hostages." "You're not going?" King asked in surprise. From her tone, it seemed that she was not going to participate in the rescue. Terumi lifted her hair by her ear and said solemnly, "I'm responsible for the fate of the entire Terumi clan. I'm afraid I can't go with you this time." As the young clan leader, if she had any accidents again, the Terumi clan would be finished. "Don't worry, I have my Byakugan. Nothing will happen." King pointed to the eye patch on his right side and said, "In order to avoid attracting the attention of the ghost lights, we can't bring too many people for this rescue operation. Therefore, this requires these people to be extremely powerful masters, and your boiling escape is very suitable for use in prisons. In case of an accident, it can also create acid mist to block the passage and buy time for everyone to evacuate. So, for this rescue operation, I strongly recommend that you come along." Looking at the captain's firm and solemn expression, it was really difficult for Terumi to say no. After hesitating for a long time, she nodded helplessly and whispered, "Okay, I'll go prepare it now." After that, she turned around and left quickly with the map. Although she had the captain's Byakugan, she was not afraid of being ambushed, and her boiling escape and dissolving escape were especially suitable for fighting in the closed environment of the prison, where no one would be her opponent. But she was not the little girl she used to be. She knew that nothing was absolute, and she had to be prepared for everything, even the worst preparation. Therefore, she had to arrange her agents and future deployments before taking the risk. Just in case something unexpected really happened, the Terumi clan would not be leaderless and fall apart. Half an hour later, Terumi Mei, who had arranged everything, came to King with 10 elite soldiers. She spent a lot of effort to persuade the elders of the clan. Then, she solemnly said to the man with the eye mask, "Let's go." After avoiding the spies arranged by the Kizuna family nearby, Terumi Mei and a group of people quietly came to the prison near the hidden mist village. She took out the map and asked King, "Captain, the guards outside the prison are too densely stationed. Where do we need to sneak into the prison smoothly?" King glanced at the map, then looked at the guards stationed not far away, and whispered, "I have arranged everything, you follow me." After that, he waved his hand, and led everyone around the outside, and finally selected a location. "Wait for me here." He greeted everyone, and quietly approached the nearest guards. When they first saw him, several guards were shocked. Then, I don't know what he said to the guards, but they made gestures to their companions around them, and quickly turned their heads away, relaxing their guard. Then, after seeing King excitedly gesturing and greeting, Terumi Medi immediately rushed over with her men. "Stop talking nonsense, they will pretend not to see us for the time being, let's hurry into the prison." After sending Terumi Medi away, King hurriedly led everyone to the prison entrance behind. After receiving the message from his companions, the guards at the prison entrance also turned a blind eye to them. Then, Terumi Medi and his group entered the prison of the Hidden Mist village without any danger. "You guys guard the passage in sections, and report immediately if there is any situation." After instructing everyone under his command, Terumi Medi and King went straight to the deepest part of the prison, where the hostages were marked on the map. However, she did not see that the middle-aged man wearing an eye mask showed a meaningful smile. Soon, she followed the markings on the map, and soon found Chief Terumi. "My lord, I'm here to save you." She greeted the chief with great joy. Although the hostages were all important, the first target she chose to rescue was, of course, her own chief. But the chief was locked on a cross, and didn't look very well. Then, she spit out acid mist, and prepared to violently dismantle the door lock. At the same time, seeing her appear here, Chief Terumi was surprised and happy. However, at this moment, he saw the cruel smile behind Terumi Medi. He immediately reminded in a weak voice, "Watch out behind you." Chapter 387 Dilemma. What? Medi Terumi, who was concentrating on corroding the door lock with acid mist, was a little confused when she heard the clan leader's reminder. Whoosh! A strong wind suddenly hit her from behind. She instinctively turned her head to the side, and then she was hit hard on the shoulder. "Ah!" With a sharp pain, she screamed, staggered and was knocked to the ground, and even the stone slab under her feet was broken. Without caring too much, she endured the severe pain, turned over, and rolled a long way along the ground before quickly turning over and getting up. "Captain, why is this?" Covering the severe pain in her shoulder, she looked at the middle-aged man with an eye mask in front of the cell door and asked sternly. There were only her, King, and the clan leader who was locked in the cell here, a total of 3 people. Obviously, the person who just attacked her from behind could only be King. However, no matter what, she couldn't believe that King would do such a thing. Could it be that he has completely pledged allegiance to the 4th generation? She couldn't help but think so in her heart. Only this can explain King's motive. The middle-aged man with the eye mask showed a wicked smile and said, "Take a good look at who I am." Then, he made a hand seal, and with white smoke rising from his feet, the middle-aged man with the eye mask disappeared, replaced by an orange one-eyed masked man. "That was a fairy. It's you." Terumi Medi was shocked. So that's how it is. Recalling the past, she suddenly realized why King had tried so hard to invite her to join the rescue operation, and was so anxious that she didn't even notify the Hoshigaki family. It turned out that all this was the other party's calculation. Taking advantage of her eagerness to rescue the hostages, he forced her to make a hasty decision on the grounds of seizing the opportunity, and then transferred her away from Terumi's house, leaving her isolated and helpless. "Unfortunately, you know it too late." Afei sneered. Originally, when they were outside the prison and everyone was deep in the guard garrison area, he had the opportunity to take action and cooperate with the Kirigakure guards to besiege them, but the surrounding environment was relatively open, and it was easy for him to run away. In addition, Medi Terumi is not weak either, so it is not easy to take her down in a short time by direct confrontation. If time goes on, it is likely to attract reinforcement from the Terumi clan, because Medi Terumi has arranged people to meet her outside. To be on the safe side, he had to give up the plan to take action outside. He led Medi Terumi into the underground prison to reduce the possibility of her escape as much as possible, and then chose to take action. because there is only one exit in the underground prison. Although the space here is closed and very suitable for Meditarumi's battlefield, many higher level members of the Kirigakure are imprisoned here. In particular, there is a leader of the Terumi clan next to it. You know, those iron fences can't stop the spread of acid mist. Once Meditarumi uses the boiling escape, none of these people will survive. And because of his right eye's ability to become a virtual, he will not worry about his life. Unless Meditarumi has the awareness to abandon these people and fill the entire underground prison with acid mist. Otherwise this closed space will not only not be a help to her, but will become an obstacle to her escape. But judging from the current situation, Meditarumi obviously does not have this awareness. If there was, they would never take such a big risk to come and rescue the hostages in person. In other words, Terumi Me's defeat was certain. On the other side, the chief of the Terumi clan, who was chained to the cross, saw the blue-skirted girl's painful face and asked with concern, "Ming, are you okay?" Hiss, feeling the severe pain on her shoulder, Terumi Medi took a breath of cold air, and while guarding against the one-eyed mask, she pretended to be calm and said, "I'm fine. I'll rescue you later." "No problem." Arfei sneered twice and said, "Although you avoided the vital points, my previous blow has broken your shoulder blade. Your arm is temporarily useless. Now, you can't even save yourself. How can you save them?" His tone was full of sarcasm. Hearing this, the chief of the Terumi clan on the cross couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. The importance of limbs to humans is self-evident. If any one of them is damaged, it will cause great inconvenience to people's actions. And ninjas cannot do without their hands when performing spells. Now, one of Terumi Me's arms was injured, and the speed of casting ninjutsu must be greatly reduced. In this case, whether it is close combat or long-range attack, it will be in a very dangerous situation. Then, he hurriedly shouted to the blue-skirt girl, "Ming, go. Don't worry about us. It's too late. Since she entered this prison, she has no possibility of retreating." Afei turned around and said proudly to the leader of the Terumi clan. At the same time, Terumi Mei seized the moment when he turned his head and used her other hand to make a seal, gathered chakra in her mouth, and after quickly transforming the nature, she spit out a mouthful of milky white mucus. Dissolving style, dissolving monsters. Originally, in this underground prison, she was most suitable to use boiling style acid mist. But in order to prevent the acid mist from accidentally injuring the clan leader, she had to choose to use dissolving style mucus to meet the enemy. As for close combat sneak attacks, let alone. She was not very good at close combat, and now one of her arms was seriously injured. If she fought with the guy with the ability to become a hollow in close combat, it would undoubtedly be a dead end. Zzzz. Unfortunately, Arfei had been on guard against her and had not relaxed at all. The milky white mucus penetrated Arfei's body without any hindrance, fell to the ground, and corroded the nearby stone floor into wisps of green smoke. "Stop struggling. Tell me obediently, where did Qishuang go? Why is there no trace of him in the hidden mist village?" Arfei slowly turned his head and calmly asked the girl in the blue skirt. Capturing Meditarumi alive, forcing her to tell him about Qishuang's whereabouts, and finding Lin's body were also one of his goals. Therefore, when he attacked her, he did not kill her directly. Meditarumi wiped the mucus from the corner of her mouth and said firmly, "Don't say I don't know. Even if I know, I will never tell you." Hearing this, Arfei under the mask could not help but frown. He thought he could learn about Qishuang's whereabouts from Meditarumi, but he never thought that even she didn't know, which made Arfei a little disappointed. "In that case, don't blame me for being rude." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed to the blue-skirted girl in an instant and thrust his fist straight at her beautiful face. Boiling style, skillful mist technique. Meditarumi, who had been prepared, sprayed a mouthful of white acid mist directly at her face. Compared to the slow-moving mucus, the rapidly spreading acid mist is more aggressive. Unfortunately, the clan leader was also nearby, so she didn't dare to produce too much acid mist. She could only spray a little and attack the opponent nearby. However, her acid mist still passed through Afei's body without any hindrance and dissipated into the air. Afei took advantage of the situation and used his ability to transform to get behind her, and then he elbowed her with his backhand. White Zetsu's transformation is very powerful, but his own combat power is not strong. Even if he transforms and attacks, it is difficult for him to pose a threat to masters. It is more reliable to attack Chunin and Genin, but it is too difficult for him to attack Jonin. You guessed that White Zetsu transformed, but you guessed wrong. Chapter 388 Return. Meditarumi sensed the opponent's attack and was about to dodge, but her shoulder injury was involved. Because of the pain, she couldn't help but slow down. Boom. Afei hit her back with an elbow, knocking her out. She kept hitting the cell door on the other side and then collapsed on the ground. Ming, clan leader Terumi was very worried when he saw this, but unfortunately his chakra was banned and he was locked up, so he couldn't do anything. Next to the cell door, Meditarumi tried her best to get up, but after suffering 2 heavy blows in a row, her limbs were sore and her internal organs were in great pain. At this moment, she couldn't even lift a muscle. She could only sit on the ground leaning against the cell door, looking at the one-eyed mask with hatred, helpless. Don't be afraid, I won't kill you just like that. Afei stood there, without launching another attack, just quietly looking at the girl in the blue skirt, and said, "You are the young chief of the Terumi clan. Your identity is still very valuable. Moreover, I will return to you 10 times and 100 times the pain that you Kirigakure inflicted on Lin. Now, it's not time to kill you yet." On the other side, seeing that the situation was getting worse and worse, the chief of the Terumi clan on the cross continued to urge, "Ming, go quickly, don't worry about us." Afei frowned secretly and said unhappily, "Old man, you are really annoying." Sharingan illusion. Then, the chief of the Terumi clan suddenly felt a red eye enlarged in his mind, and then he drooped his head helplessly. "Now I can be quiet for a while." Afei turned around and said meaningfully to the girl in the blue skirt. Just at the moment of turning back, a glittering light on the ground attracted his attention. Looking closely again, he found that it was a glittering snow lotus. Glass ornaments? Obviously, it was something that fell from Meditarumi, because there was nothing on the ground before, and he didn't have anything like this on him. Only a girl like Meditarumi would wear such beautiful ornaments. No, that's not right. It's ice. Afei quickly denied his previous judgment, because he clearly saw that there were wisps of cold air around the snow lotus. At the same time, seeing Afei's attention fall on the ground, Meditarumi also looked over, and then she found that it was the snow lotus that Qishuang gave her that fell. It was estimated that it should have fallen out of her arms when she was knocked away by the other party's elbow. Then, she struggled to reach out and wanted to pick up the snow lotus. Just as her fingers were about to touch the snow lotus, another hand wearing a black glove took the snow lotus away first. "Give it back to me. It's mine." She leaned forward and instinctively wanted to take back the snow lotus, but her body didn't obey at all, and she could only fall softly to the ground. Afei ignored her, just looked at the snow lotus in his hand, and murmured, "Ordinary ice cubes can't be kept for long in your arms. This snow lotus is definitely not made of ordinary ice." Then, he focused the power of his Sharingan on the snow lotus, and soon found a large amount of residual chakra in the center of the snow lotus. Ice escape creation? He immediately came to his own conclusion. If you want to use chakra to make ice cubes, you can only use ice escape. Give it back to me. It's mine. Meditarumi stood up shakily with the help of the prison door, trying to snatch the snow lotus. But she couldn't even stand steadily, so how could she snatch something from Afei? As a result, Afei just moved his feet lightly and easily avoided her snatch. Seeing her anxious look, Afei thought for a while and said, "There are only a handful of ice escape ninjas left in the Hidden Mist village. This snow lotus should be given to you by him, right?" According to the information he got from King, Qishuang and Meditarumi have a good relationship. Therefore, he judged that this snow lotus is likely to be given by Qishuang. Meditarumi did not answer, but leaned against the cell door panting, stared at him fiercely and shouted, "Give it back to me." "Okay, I'll give it back to you right away." Under the mask, Afei handed over the snow lotus with a playful smile. Just when Meditarumi thought she had found it again, and reached out to take it with joy, Afei shook it gently and immediately shook the snow lotus to the ground. "You." Meditarumi glared at her. "Sorry, I didn't hold it firmly." He apologized hurriedly. However, Meditarumi did not hear any apology from his tone at all, but instead there was a strong sense of teasing. Unfortunately, the ice made by Qishuang was extraordinary, and it was impossible to break it, just by throwing it like this. Arfeni did not see the result he wanted. But he did not get discouraged. Instead he quickly stretched out his right foot and stepped on it fiercely. He was very surprised because he did not hear the expected sound of the snow lotus breaking, but felt that his soul was a little painful. It seems that he has put a lot of thought into this toy he gave you. With a playful look at Meditarumi, Arfeni quickly picked up the snow lotus and stepped aside. The more Meditarumi cared about it, and the more Qishuang tried, the more he wanted to destroy it. Because simply killing people could not satisfy his desire for revenge. Only by attacking the enemy mentally and magnifying the heartache he had suffered tenfold or 100-fold to these hateful misninjas, so that they could also feel despair and pain, could this be considered perfect revenge. Then, he concentrated his chakra on his right hand and immediately saw his arm turned into a cluster of intertwined vines, tightly wrapping the snow lotus in the middle. No, guessing his plan, Meditarumi screamed in fear, but she couldn't stop it at all. That was the last thought Qishuang left for her. Then, in her desperate eyes, the snow lotus was crushed into countless ice chips with a click under the strangling power of the vines. Heartbroken? Seeing her sad look, Arfei suddenly felt relieved and said, when Lin died, the pain I endured was 100, or 1,000, 10,000 times greater than what you are experiencing now. Now, it's just the beginning. I will return what you gave me double. However, Terumi Mei seemed to have not heard what he said at all. She just stared at the ground blankly. Her expression gradually changed. The sadness was swept away, and she became more happy. Crazy? Arfei muttered, and followed her gaze. He saw that on the ground, the broken ice, that should have been scattered, was strangely arranged and piled up. How could it be? He was shocked and looked again, but saw that the broken ice piled up to form two big words. Return soon. Return soon. He repeated it in his mind several times, and finally understood that this meant return soon. Combined with the chakra he saw in the snow lotus before, he immediately understood that this was the return signal left by Qishuang with the remaining chakra. The guy he had been looking for was finally about to show up. At the same time, Qishuang, who was far away in the Ryochi cave, also learned about the attack on Meditarumi the moment the snow lotus shattered. Because the snow lotus was transformed from his clone. Although the snow lotus did not have the ability to move like a normal clone, it retained the clone's ability to record information. He already knew everything. Was he surprised or not? Chapter 389 Fighter. He really knows how to pick the time. He is actually preparing to show up at this time. Looking at the ice debris slowly dissipating on the ground, Arfei mocked undisguisedly. After his operation for this period of time, the situation in the Hidden Mist village has reached an extremely tense point. Led by the three families of Hazuki, Hoshigaki, and Terumi, there are constant frictions among many forces below, and the contradictions are increasing day by day. Although the three families have tried their best to restrain themselves, anyone with a discerning eye can see that it only takes a little spark to completely ignite the war among the three families. It's just that the three families are afraid of each other and are not sure, so they are still waiting for the opportunity to fight. And Arfei led Terumi Mei out, not only for the purpose of interrogating the whereabouts of Lin and Qishuang, but also for the purpose of creating an opportunity for Terumi's side. The clan leader and the young clan leader have been in trouble one after another, especially at this critical juncture. The Terumi clan can't sit still. A single move can move the whole body. As long as the Terumi clan moves, the Hoshigaki clan, as an ally, will definitely not fall behind. At that time, no matter how reluctant the Hazuki clan is, they will have to choose to go to war. As the war between the three families begins, the Hidden Mist village will soon be ignited by the flames of war. Especially now, the three families have made sufficient preparations for the war in advance. The civil war in the Hidden Mist village will not be able to produce results in a short time, but will be extremely long-lasting. And for Arfei, the longer this war lasts, the better. Because the longer it lasts, the more serious the overall casualties of the Hidden Mist village will be. No matter which side wins in the end, the Hidden Mist village will definitely be seriously injured, or even completely destroyed in the war between the three major families. This is the result he wants to see. Then, he looked at the blue-skirted girl leaning against the prison door and said meaningfully, "The show has begun." Sharingan illusion Meditarumi, who was still immersed in the joy of Nana Frost's return, was caught off guard and immediately saw a blood-red moon enlarged in her field of vision, and then collapsed to the ground again. At this moment, a tall figure slowly walked over from the other end of the passage. "Have you cleaned up all those trash?" Arfei asked, looking at the shark face walking out of the shadows. 9 in total, all killed. Sharkface, who was carrying a huge bandage weapon, said nonchalantly. Arfei nodded and said, "There's nothing for you to do here for now. You continue to stay at the Hoshigaki family, and remember to report any important information to me." "Yes, my Mizukage." Sharkface responded, and used chakra to absorb the bandage weapon on his back, and then turned and left. With a series of footsteps, he slowly disappeared at the end of the passage. Only 9 bodies of Terumi clan ninjas were left, lying in the aisle in a mess, with blood flowing all over the floor. "This guy, let's lock him up first," Arfei muttered to himself, looking at the blue skirt girl who collapsed beside the prison door. He had no intention of killing Terumi Medi in the first place, not to mention that, now that he knew that Nana Frost was not dead, and was about to return, he had no intention of killing anyone. Because Lin's body was still in the hands of that bastard. Leaving Terumi Medi behind may be used as a bargaining chip for negotiation and exchange at a critical moment. Then, he opened the vortex of the void, sucked Meditarumi into the alternate dimension, and went to another cell. Although his Sharingan alternate dimension was large, it was his private domain after all, and could not be used as a real cell. Moreover, he needed to devote some of his energy to maintain the illusion control over Yagura, and had no energy to control a second person for a long time. Once Meditarumi broke free from the illusion control, it would bring him great trouble. Therefore, he could not risk putting Meditarumi in his alternate dimension. Not long after, he stopped outside a cell door. There was also a middle-aged mist ninja wearing an eye mask locked inside, who was the Bay Iron Killer King who he had captured earlier. At the same time, after seeing the identity of the person, King snorted coldly and turned his head to the side. Although he was a prisoner, he did not hide his disgust. "Old friend, I brought someone I know to accompany you." Under the mask, Arfei raised the corner of his mouth. Then, he activated the ability of the virtualization of his right eye, and easily got into the cell. After gaining his footing, he once again focused his chakra on his right eye, and opened a vortex of emptiness in front of him. Then, King saw a familiar blue figure floating out of the vortex. When the vortex of emptiness dissipated, and the distorted vision became completely clear, King could see clearly that it was a pretty girl in a blue dress. Ming. King screamed out the girl's name. He never thought that they would meet here. "Don't worry, you have plenty of time to chat slowly." Arfei looked at him playfully, then took out a pill from his pocket and stuffed it directly into Terumi Medi's mouth. It was a secret medicine that he got from the Kirigakure to restrict chakra. After taking it, the ninja will not be able to muster strength for a long time, and the ability to mobilize chakra will be weakened to the extreme, completely losing the ability to resist. This is also the fundamental reason why Kirigakure prison can hold so many ninjas. Because ninjas who cannot use chakra are no different from ordinary people. Otherwise, it would be a joke to try to lock up this group of people with just a few iron chains and fences. Then, under King's indignant eyes, Arfei used chains to lock Terumi Medi to another corner of the prison, and then slowly disappeared into the vortex of the void opened in his right eye. Ming, Ming, Ming. After Arfei left, King called out again and again, but unfortunately the girl in the blue skirt still did not respond at all. How could he know that Terumi Medi was trapped in Arfei's illusion, and her consciousness was still trapped in the illusion world, and could not get out for the time being? Outside the prison, the Terumi ninjas who were waiting to pick up the young patriarch waited for a long time, but still did not see the young patriarch and his men come out, and everyone could not help but feel an ominous feeling. The uneasy people immediately passed the news back to the tribe. The several Terumi elders who learned the news regretted it. Obviously, something happened to the young patriarch. Fortunately, the young patriarch had already made arrangements before leaving, which was a blessing in disguise. Then, as Afeni expected, the clan leader and the young clan leader had problems one after another, and the Terumi clan could no longer hold back, and began to discuss the battle with the Hoshigaki clan. However, although they knew that they would go to war with the ghost lamp sooner or later, the Hoshigaki clan was still a little hesitant when the time came. Because this is a civil war in the Hidden Mist village. Provoking a war and passively counter-attacking are two completely different things. The party that actively provokes a civil war is bound to lose the support of the people and fall behind in public opinion. The party that passively counterattacks, on the other hand, occupies the righteousness on the grounds of quelling the rebellion and takes advantage of the situation to buy people's hearts and can absorb the largest number of scattered ninjas in the Hidden Mist village to strengthen itself, thereby breaking the balance between the two sides and laying the foundation for victory. In other words, the party that takes action first will not only not take advantage, but will also lose the support of the most scattered mist ninjas because of the loss of righteousness and will bury the root cause of failure. This is also the reason why they have been preparing for a long time and have not taken the initiative to attack. They are all waiting to see who can't help but take action first. Therefore, faced with the American idea of starting a war, they were hesitant and even reluctant. Chapter 390 No. In the Langdi cave, Qishuang received the intelligence feedback of the Snow Lotus clone for several years at once, and then he lay on the ground with his head in his hands in pain. Because the amount of information was too much, it was as if someone had stuffed several years of memory into him out of thin air. It was different from the time when he first came to this world. The mental shock, that time was the integration of the original memory of this body and the memory of his soul, which produced a certain fluctuation. It was just broken and reorganized on the original basis, not like this time, when a lot of information was directly stuffed into him out of thin air. Therefore, the mental shock caused this time was stronger than that time. As the information recorded by the Snow Lotus clone played quickly in his mind, he also had a general understanding of what happened in the Hidden Mist village in the past few years. Of course, what he knew was limited to what Terumi Mei knew, because the Snow Lotus clone was always carried by Terumi Mei. In addition to the changes in the Hidden Mist village, he also saw the scene of Ming bathing from the clone's records. Then, a touch of crimson liquid flowed out of his nostrils. After a long time, when the headache was gone, Qishuang slowly got up from the ground. Subconsciously, he touched the bottom of his nose, and looking at the blood on his fingertips, he twitched his mouth and said, "This must not be known to Ming, otherwise she will peel my skin off." Then, he shook his head and slowly walked towards the temple behind. Pushing open the red painted door, walking through the corridor, he came to the deepest part of the temple. On the stone bed, the white snake immortal opened his eyes, looked straight at Qishuang and asked, "What's the matter, little guy?" Qishuang lowered his head and said, "Thanks to the care of the immortals, I have gained the power of immortals. Now it's time for me to leave." Ichikashima beside the stone bed hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" It's not easy to get a new toy, but it's going to be gone after just a few years of playing. It's still a little reluctant. Qishuang solemnly replied, "The Hidden Mist village is about to change, and I can't continue to practice with peace of mind." After several years of hard practice and polishing, his sage mode is getting closer and closer to perfection, and the transformation of various ninjutsu and immortal arts is basically integrated. The training of levitation technique and dragon heart seal was completely completed. Only the fusion of ice escape chakra mode and sage mode was not completed, or in other words, the sage mode of ice escape chakra mode had reached a bottleneck. Because both of them attach energy to the whole body, they are self-enhancing techniques, and they are very similar. It's just that the energy of the two techniques is different. Therefore, there is a conflict in the sage mode of chakra mode, which cannot be resolved in a short time. On the stone bed, the white snake sage took a puff of cigarette and said slowly, "Since you have decided to leave, this sage will not force you to stay. Just make up your mind." Hearing this, Qishuang thanked him again, and then turned around and left, and soon disappeared at the exit of the temple. At this moment, what he was most worried about was not the situation in the Hidden Mist village, but the safety of Ming. He never thought that Ming would fall into Obito's hands. Therefore, he no longer had the heart to practice in the Ryochi cave. In the temple, the White Snake Immortal instructed the 3 snake princesses, let the snake tribe closest to the Hidden Mist village go and see what happened in the Hidden Mist village. It's best to record the changes in the entire Hidden Mist village and the boy's actions in your mind, and then bring them back to this immortal. A person who can change the world has taken action, and it is unwilling to miss this good show anyway. Although it cannot be there in person, the White Snake Immortal has the ability to extract the memories of the snake tribe. As long as there are snake tribes to witness everything, it can see these things again from the other party's memory. Then, the 3 snake princesses passed on the White Snake Immortal's order. After being passed on layer by layer, many snake tribes closest to the Hidden Mist village rushed to the Hidden Mist village after receiving the order. After leaving the dragon cave, Qishuang immediately used the flotation technique to fly into the sky. Because flying can control wind power and is not restricted by terrain, and flying through the sky, it can save a lot of trouble when entering the territory of other countries. Especially he needs to pass through the southern part of the Land of Fire. If he met a Konoha ninja on the ground, he would inevitably have a fight. Therefore, in the long run, the average speed of flying is much faster than his running on the ground. In the dungeon of the Hidden Mist village, after Afei left, the effect of the illusion decayed over time, and Terumi Mei finally got rid of the control of the illusion with her tenacious willpower. Captain, why are you here? When she opened her eyes, she immediately saw the middle-aged man with an eye mask locked opposite. No, this must be an illusion. Then, she denied everything she saw. Because she had been deceived by the one-eyed mask pretending to be king once before, and she was just caught in an illusion, so she naturally thought that she was still trapped in the illusion world. Seeing that, she woke up and said something that made him confused. King said with a smile, "What illusion? It's really me, Ming. It's not an illusion?" Terumi Mei was surprised. Then, she looked around carefully and found that she was locked in a cell. More importantly, she felt that she had almost no strength in her body, and the chakra in her body was as heavy as stone, and it was difficult for her mental power to mobilize them. Judging from various situations, she had really escaped from the control of the illusion, and was locked here. And King, who was also locked on the opposite side, was probably real, not the other party's transformation. Because they had fallen to this point, she couldn't think of what was the point of the other party transforming to deceive her. Then, she glared at the middle-aged man with the eye mask fiercely, and said, "Captain, do you know that the guy wearing a one-eyed mask turned into your appearance and deceived me so badly?" Hearing the resentful tone of the girl in the blue skirt, King couldn't help but shrink his neck and hurriedly argued, "It's not me who deceived you. You can't put this account on my head." He knew the temper of Terumi well. If he didn't clear this matter now, he would definitely settle the account with him later. Terumi had no choice but to glare at him fiercely again. Suddenly, as if she remembered something, she hurriedly asked, "By the way, haven't you been following the 4th generation all the time? How did you get locked up here?" Alas. King sighed and said faintly, "The 4th generation is no longer the 4th generation, you know." "I know." Terumi Mei nodded and recalled, the 4th generation's temperament has changed a lot, and he is indeed different from before. Since the Kizuna coup, the 4th generation has rarely appeared in public. He didn't even intervene in the increasingly tense situation in the village. He just huddled quietly in the Mizukage building, and no one knew what he was planning. "No, that's not what I meant." King shook his head and said with a bitter look on his face, "The 4th generation has long been controlled by the illusion of that one-eyed masked guy. The 4th generation today is just a puppet." Chapter 391 Powerless. What? Terumi dropped her jaw in shock. Yagira, a perfect Jinkriki, could actually be controlled by someone using illusions. This sounds like a fantasy. Captain, are you getting old and confused? Leaning against the prison wall behind her, Terumi looked deeply at the middle-aged man with the eye mask. Feeling the suspicion in the eyes of the blue-skirted girl, King became anxious and hurriedly explained, "On the day when the 4th Hokage came back from chasing Uchiha Itachi, I was in the Mizukage's office and clearly saw abnormal chakra appearing in the 4th Hokage's brain with my Byakugan. And those chakras are exactly the same as the chakra on that one-eyed masked man. Plus, the Sharingan has the ability to control the tailed beasts, which makes me believe that the fourth Hokage was controlled by that guy using illusions. Hearing this, Meditarumi's face immediately became extremely solemn. King's Byakugan can see through everything. In terms of insight, it is the best in the ninja world. Even the famous Sharingan is inferior to it. Therefore, the captain said that he saw abnormal chakra appearing in the fourth Hokage's brain, and he was definitely not wrong. The fourth Hokage was really controlled by that man's Sharingan illusion. At the same time, she finally understood why the fourth Hokage's temperament changed drastically, why the situation in Kirigakure was getting worse and worse, and why the fourth Hokage did not intervene. You know, although the fourth Hokage did not care about political affairs and had an eccentric personality, he was essentially a person who loved Kirigakure. Otherwise, he would not have chosen to sit on the position of Mizukage. Because, in addition to representing the highest status in Kirigakure, the Mizukage also represents the responsibility of protecting Kirigakure. Therefore, as the Mizukage, Yagura will never sit idly by and watch the situation in Kirigakure deteriorate, even if he doesn't know what to do. Thinking of this, Meditarumi seemed to realize something again. She looked at the middle-aged man with the eye mask and said in astonishment, the Hazuki family and the fourth generation jointly launched a coup. It is absolutely impossible that they did not discover the fact that the fourth generation was controlled by illusion. In other words, they knew it and deliberately colluded with outsiders to hold the Mizukage hostage in an attempt to control the entire Kirigakure, rather than the political struggle between the fourth generation and many high-level officials to seize power as we see on the surface. This also explains why the fourth generation allowed the Hazuki family to expand wantonly, because the fourth generation had long been a puppet of the Hazuki family and that person. King nodded on the opposite side. After being imprisoned, he also learned everything that happened outside from the guards. He sighed and said, if it weren't for the Hazuki family's ill intentions, even if that person controlled the fourth generation, it would never have caused the current situation. No matter how clever the illusion of the Sharingan is, it is just an illusion after all. It can be hidden from everyone for 1, 2, 3, or even 10 days, but it is absolutely impossible to remain undiscovered. Once they were discovered, no one would obey the orders issued by that person in the name of Mizukage. The fourth Hokage controlled by that person was just an ordinary Jinchuriki. Unfortunately, the Hazuki clan had evil intentions. They turned a blind eye to the fact that the fourth Hokage was controlled, and with the help of that person, they launched a coup and blocked the news, making it impossible for the people below to know that the fourth Hokage was controlled by someone. They thought that the fourth Hokage was engaged in a political struggle with the parties. Little did they know that the power of Kirigakure had fallen into the hands of a group of ambitious people. It's bad. Hearing King sighing about the difficult situation, Terumi screamed and said in surprise, even I have been arrested. The elders in the clan must be unable to restrain their temper and want to go to war with the Hazuki family. Although the Terumi and Hishigaki families have been waiting for the opportunity to fight, this opportunity is definitely not what she wants. If the Terumi clan rashly provokes a war, it will inevitably lose the support of many scattered Kirigakure ninjas. By then, whether it is public opinion or the comparison of the strength of both sides, they will be at a disadvantage, and the possibility of victory will become increasingly slim. Come on, we can't even protect ourselves. How can we care about them? King shook his head, his tone pessimistic. If the Kazuki side wins, they will no longer be useful. Except for some dispensable guys, important figures like the chief of the Terumi clan and Terumi Medi will never be able to survive. But if the Kizuki side loses, the probability of them surviving is also 50 to 50. Either they will be kept as bargaining chips, or they will be used as tools to vent anger or sacrifices to be buried with them. But as far as the current situation is concerned, the Kizuki side has the Mizukage in hand and can mobilize the Kirigakure's elite troops. If the Terumi family takes the lead in starting the war, and they gain public support, the Kizuki side will undoubtedly have a greater chance of winning. No, I can't just sit there and wait for death. I have to get out of here. The girl in the blue skirt struggled to stand up, but her limbs were sore and weak, and she had not recovered from the too heavy blow she had received before. She couldn't even muster any strength at this moment. It was difficult for her to even stand firmly, let alone break free from the iron chain. With a crisp sound, the iron chain fell to the ground, and she sat down helplessly on the ground along the wall. Don't waste your energy. King leaned against the wall and said, we have all been fed a secret drug for ninjas. Both our physical strength and chakra power have been severely restricted. There is no possibility of escaping from here. There is no other way, except waiting for rescue outside. After hearing this, Meditarumi suddenly realized, and said to herself, no wonder I feel weak in my limbs. My chakra is like frozen. It's very difficult to mobilize it even a little bit. As she said this, she gathered the few strands of chakra that she had finally mobilized in her mouth, and after the nature of the dissolution was transformed, she spit out a ball of milky white mucus the size of a fingernail at her shackles. Zzz. Along with the slight sound of the mucus corroding the shackles, wisps of green smoke floated up from the edge of the mucus. When the mucus cooled completely, she collided the shackles against each other, hoping to knock off the hardened dissolution gray matter, but she saw that there was only a tiny, barely detectable mark left at the place where the mucus had originally corroded, and she did not see the result she expected at all. How could this happen? Meditarumi was surprised. On the other side, King tried to comfort her again. Don't waste your energy. In order to lock up the captured ninjas, the torture instruments of the Hidden Mist Village are all special products, and they are not at the same level as the iron tools we use in our daily lives. These chains are added with special minerals, which have strong resistance to chakra. Even if your chakra power can still be fully mobilized, it is not easy to use the dissolution technique to corrode them. Hearing this, Meditarumi couldn't help but feel a little helpless and desperate. Her dissolution technique mucus did not have much corrosive effect on the shackles. If you want to use the dissolution technique to corrode the shackles bit by bit and then escape from here, I'm afraid you will have to wait until the end of time. As for the boiling acid mist, although its corrosive ability is stronger than the dissolution technique, it is limited after all. If you want to use the boiling technique to corrode the shackles, it is also not very reliable. Facing illusions, there are only two results. Either it is ineffective, or you fall down. There is no such thing as a ninjutsu duel, where the weaker party can hold out for a while, before being slowly overwhelmed by the other party's strength. Because the effect is too buggy, Kishimoto rarely depicts illusions in the later period. For example, when the 5-cage fought Madara, the Reikage was accidentally glanced at by Madara, and fell to his knees. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392 Hope. What should I do? Meditarumi bit her red lips and leaned against the wall of the prison, anxious. She was very worried about the situation of Terumi's family, but she was trapped here and couldn't get out. She needed strength. She needed a strong force to change the current predicament. At this moment, she had never been so eager for strength. She finally understood how important a strong force was. She regretted that she had not practiced diligently before, which led to the current situation. In fact, she did not slack off in her daily practice. Instead, she had been working hard. However, her desire for strength now made her feel that her previous efforts were not enough. If she could do it again, she would be willing to work 10 times harder. Seeing her unwillingness, King said again, unless you can increase the corrosive power of the dissolution escape 10 or 100 times, you can't break these chains with your current state. Increase the corrosive power. Hearing this, Meditarumi's eyes lit up. If she wanted to use the dissolution escape to corrode the iron chain, she would definitely need to use a large amount of chakra to create mucus, and the effect of accumulation of quantity could achieve the goal. However, due to the drugs, the chakra she could call on each time was very scarce. It was obviously impossible to use quantity to accumulate effects. But if she could increase the corrosive power 10 or 100 times, replacing quantity with quality, then the corresponding chakra usage would be reduced, and there would be a possibility of getting out of the predicament. However, to improve the corrosive power of the dissolution escape, it takes a lot of time to study, and the accumulation of research results bit by bit cannot be done overnight. This involves the field of specialization of Qishuang. However, she no longer has time to study slowly. Fortunately, she still has a method in her hand fusion. If she can fuse the 3 chakras of water, fire, and earth, superimpose the corrosive power of boiling escape and dissolution escape, and achieve blood inheritance elimination, then the corrosive power of the new escape technique will inevitably make a qualitative leap. She also has the hope of using a small amount of chakra to corrode the ion chain and escape. More importantly, the method of fusion has the possibility of quick success. Just like when she achieved boiling escape that year, there was no sign, but the opportunity came in the dark, and everything came naturally. It is entirely possible that she could obtain a new escape technique that was 10 or 100 times more powerful than the corrosion power of the dissolving escape technique in a short period of time. Thinking of this, she immediately made a decision. Seeing the determined look on the face of the girl in the blue skirt, King also noticed something. He hurriedly asked, "Ming, have you thought of something?" Meditarumi smiled and replied, "Captain, I found a way to break the deadlock. Although the possibility is not great, it is still a ray of hope. There is no need to stay here stupidly and wait for the result." "What method?" King hurriedly asked. Although his attitude was very pessimistic, if he could escape from here, he certainly did not want to wait for death. Meditarumi shook her head and did not say it directly, but whispered, "Captain, please help me spread the word. If someone comes, remind me." There is no point in telling King about the fusion method, because he can't help. The only thing that can help him is the unknown fate. Then, Meditarumi sat cross-legged, concentrated and calmed her mind, and drew out 3 strands of chakra from her body, and held them in her palm. After transforming the properties of water, fire, and earth respectively, she used her mental power to control 3 different strands of chakra and slowly approached. King, who was on the opposite side, finally understood what Meditarumi was going to do after seeing this scene. He had heard from Nana Frost that Meditarumi was trying to practice bloodline elimination, and that kind of boiling bloodline limit was a derivative product that Meditarumi accidentally created when she was practicing bloodline elimination. However, Nana Frost also said that if there is no complete training method to guide, the practice of bloodline elimination will be very dangerous and difficult, but those who can learn without a teacher are the lucky ones and the best in the ninja world. He never thought that Ming would pin his hope of escape on this almost impossible bloodline elimination. Helplessly, he had to seriously shoulder the responsibility of keeping watch for Meditarumi. Outside the prison, facing the strong intention of the Terumi family to go to war, the Hoshigaki family had no choice but to agree, because they and the Terumi family will prosper and suffer together. If Terumi's faction was defeated, the Hoshigaki faction alone would be unable to deal with the Hazuki faction and the Zili troops under the Mizukage, and it would be difficult for them to stand alone. At midnight, accompanied by a loud bang and a burst of flames, the long-suppressed battle between Hazuki, Hoshigaki, and Terumi finally broke out. Amid the shouts of killing, the troops of Hoshigaki and Terumi poured into the streets like a tide and rushed towards the Hazuki clan's base. However, Hazuki Masamune, who had been prepared for it, secretly hid his men in the surrounding houses outside the base and set up an invisible line of defense. He knew clearly that war would only bring destruction. He didn't want the war to destroy the foundation of the Hazuki family, so he prepared to move the battlefield outside as much as possible. As for the fate of the untouchables affected by the war, he didn't care at all. As long as the Hoshigaki and Terumi families were completely defeated, and all the responsibilities were put on them, the Hazuki family would be the hero of the rebellion and the last overlord of the Hidden Mist village. Hoshigaki and Terumi's clan, who were eager to kill and vent their grievances, were caught off guard and hit head-on before they rushed into the residence of the Ghost Lantern clan. Then, the two sides started a fierce battle in the outer area of the Ghost Lantern family. For a time, the sky was full of flames and the sound of killing was everywhere. Many innocent people who had never expected that the 3 major families would dare to start a war were immediately in trouble. Many people were even still asleep and had no idea what was happening. They were directly affected by the explosion of the detonating talisman or the impact of ninjutsu and their houses collapsed. and were buried silently in the ruins. Another part of them luckily escaped the moment the battle broke out and hurriedly fled with their families. Unfortunately, the three major forces fought, and the scale of the battle reached more than 10,000 people. With the residents of the Ghost Lantern family as the center, the battlefield stretched over nearly half of the Hidden Mist village. The terrified people fled their homes, but found that the war outside was raging, and had become a purgatory on Earth. Looking around, there was no pure land at all. They didn't know where to flee, and it was even unknown whether they could escape from this battlefield. However, the war beast was always ruthless. It had no sympathy for these poor guys, but instead burned them to death with fire. Countless villagers of Kirigakure were dragged into the battle by the three major forces, and turned into cold corpses amidst cries and wails. Even many neutral Kirigakure ninjas were forced to participate in the battle, but they didn't know who their enemies were. They could only wave their kunai woodenly at the guys who were hostile to them. Because they didn't want to die, they just wanted to live. They wanted to escape from this horrible battlefield. Chapter 393 Conspiracy. Despite the siege by the two families, the Hazuki faction was only slightly at a disadvantage. After the three-party negotiations, many fence-sitters under Terumi and Hishigaki changed their flags and joined the Hazuki faction. Although the Terumi and Hishigaki families did not suffer any serious damage, the Hazuki faction still surpassed the two families in terms of strength. Especially after Hazuki divided the rights and interests from the two families, and after a period of dormancy and recuperation, his strength has been further increased. Therefore, facing the siege by the two families, the Hazuki faction still fought well, and showed no signs of defeat for the time being. But as time went on, the battle of the Hazuki faction began to decline, and the front line began to shrink, turning from active counterattack to passive defense. After all, it was too much for Hazuki to fight against the two families with the strength of one family. Fortunately, the Hishigaki and Terumi faction also showed a decline in the battle. After all, people are not machines, and will feel tired. After nearly 2 hours of continuous attack, the offensive momentum of the Hishigaki and Terumi families also began to decline. However, the pressure on the Hazuki clan was still very huge. "Come here." Hazuki Masamune, who was commanding from the rear, called out, and immediately a Hazuki clan ninja knelt in front of him. "What do you want, sir?" the man asked with his head down. "Send someone to the Mizukage building as soon as possible to pass on a message asking the Mizukage to send troops to quell the rebellion," Hazuki Masamune solemnly instructed. "The battle has been going on for so long, but the silly troops of the Hidden Mist village are still nowhere to be seen. This is an extremely abnormal situation. Now, the three families are fighting, and half of the Hidden Mist village has become a battlefield. The momentum is so great that the Mizukage in the center of the Hidden Mist village, or the guy named Afei, must not be unaware of it. But even after so much time, the guy still hasn't sent anyone to support, so he had to send someone to urge him. Not long after, a scarred mist ninja broke into the Mizukage building. The battle outside was too intense. A dozen of them were responsible for delivering messages, but most of their companions died in the process of crossing the battlefield. Only he managed to rush out and arrived here. Looking at the young fourth generation behind the desk, he knelt down with a plop and said loudly, "Lord Mizukage, Terumi and Hishigaki have started a rebellion. Please send troops to support the Kizuki family." Yagura did not reply. Only a guy wearing an orange one-eyed mask came out from the shadow of his chair and said in a hoarse voice, "Lord Mizukage has learned of your request. Withdraw. Reinforcement will arrive soon." Hearing this, the mist ninja hesitated. At this moment, Yagura said coldly, "Withdraw." Looking at the cold face of the fourth generation, he had no choice but to slowly withdraw from the Mizukage's office. When the footsteps faded away, a cluster of green plants like pitcher plants grew out of the floor. The jagged leaves opened, revealing a half-black and half-white weirdo inside. That was Zetsu, who was responsible for organizing communications. "Are you really going to send troops to help the Kizuki family, Afei?" Zetsu's white half asked first. He also heard the previous request of the Mist Ninja and Afei's answer. "Why not help?" Afei looked at him playfully and said, "Anyway, they are all from the Kizuki village. I won't feel bad if more of them die." But, if you help the Kizuki family defeat Ashigaki and Terumi, there will be no benefit for us? White Zetsu continued to ask. When did I agree to help them defeat Ashigaki and Terumi? Afeni's tone was full of mockery. However, it was unclear whether he was mocking Kizuki or White Zetsu. After hearing his words, Zetsu's black half showed a look of realization. But, shut up, idiot. Without waiting for Beizetsu to ask again, Heizetsu interrupted impatiently. Afeni mobilized the Zili troops of Kirigakure in the name of Mizukage. He only needs to stabilize the situation and not go all out. He can keep the Kizuna side undefeated to continue the entire war. And the longer the war lasts, the greater the overall loss of Kirigakure will be. Even the entire Kirigakure village may be dragged down by this continuous war. Complete destruction in the end. Such a result is the most favorable result for us. After listening to Heizetsu's words, Afeni nodded and said, yes, I just want to continue this battle indefinitely. Then he instructed Beizetsu, pay attention to the overall situation of Kirigakure and report to me at any time. In addition, notify me as soon as you find a strange ice escape ninja. Since the demise of the Snow Clan, there are only a handful of bloodline limiters in the entire Kirigakure village who still have ice escape. And in order to facilitate the search for Nana Qishuang, Afeni secretly dealt with some ice escape ninjas one after another, after arriving in Kirigakure village. Today, there are less than 5 ninjas in the Hidden Mist village who still have the ice release Kekoi Genkei. Even though Nana Frost has returned to the Hidden Mist village after many years and her appearance has changed, as long as he uses the ice release, Afeni can immediately lock onto the target. Hearing this, Black Zetsu looked at him deeply and said meaningfully, you really can't forget him. Although he has not been in the Hidden Mist for a long time, Black Zetsu, with his strong lurking ability and intelligence ability, quickly figured out everything and knew that Afeni was searching for Nana Frost. However, he did not want Afeni to spend too much time on the dead little girl, because Afeni's obsession was too deep. He was a little worried that Afeni would deviate from the path that person had arranged in advance. Afeni did not explain, but just drove the ability of his right eye to open a void vortex and sucked himself and Yagura at hand into it. When the void vortex dissipated, Afeni and Yagura had disappeared. Then, Zetsu closed the serrated leaves on both sides of his body, slowly retracted into the floor, and disappeared. At the same time, the spies of the other 4 villages lurking in Kirigakure also quickly transmitted Kirigakure's intelligence back to their respective ninja villages. Anoki stood on the top floor of that Tsuchikage building, facing the cool night breeze, looking to the southeast, and sneered, fight, fight, the more intense the better. At this moment, a muffled voice came from behind him. Father. Hearing this address, Anoki turned around and growly like an old cat with its fur standing on end, tiptoed, pointed at the burly man behind him and cursed. Here, I'm the 3rd generation Tsuchikage, not your father. Yellow Earth, you idiot, how come you can't remember it after so many times? Looking at the old man in front of him who was so angry that he jumped up and down, the burly man in red could only scratch his head awkwardly and smiled bitterly. The 2-day scared Anoki is his father, but the old man does not allow him to call him that in public, saying that it is to avoid suspicion. Tonight, seeing that there was no one around, he didn't pay attention to it. Who knew that the older the old man got, the more stubborn his temper became. He was still arguing over such a trivial matter. What bad luck. Chapter 394 Watching the Fire. Ahem. Looking at the angry old man, Huangtu cleared his throat, then changed his words helplessly. It's Tsuchikage-sama, are we really not going to intervene in the Kirigakure? After all, Kirigakure was their ally in the last war against Konoha. Hearing this, Anoki, with his white hair and beard, glared at him fiercely and rebuked him in a tone of regret. Intervene? How to intervene? Whether by land or sea, it takes several days to travel from Iwagakure to Kirigakure. There are Konoha village and Kumogakure in the middle. Send you? Or send me? Judging from the current situation, they on the Iwagakure side are simply unable to provide support. After venting, the old man's anger seemed to have subsided a lot, and his tone couldn't help but lighten a bit. He added, besides, that is Kirigakure's family affair. Why should we outsiders meddle in it? The village has been recuperating for a few years, and has finally recovered a little vitality. I don't want to be dragged into the muddy water of Kirigakure. That's right. As he said that, he seemed to remember something and hurriedly ordered the strong man behind him, tell the people below to pay extra attention to the movements of Kirigakure. Don't let them take advantage of Kirigakure. At the critical moment, we will leave and send troops to stop them. Looking at the determined expression on the old man's face, Huang too became even more confused. He scratched his head and asked in confusion, Lord Suchikage, didn't you say that you wanted to conserve your strength and didn't want to get involved in their affairs? Why are you talking about sending troops to stop Kirigakure now? Idiot. Hearing his question, Anoki's anger, which had finally subsided, rose again. He stood on tiptoe and stretched out his hand, trying to pat Huangtu's head. However, Huangtu's height of more than 2 meters was far beyond that of a little old man like him who was just over 1 meter tall. Therefore, even if Anoki stood on his tiptoes, he still couldn't reach his son's head. Instead, he became even more angry. Seeing the red-nosed old man angry and anxious, Huangtu scratched his head and had no choice but to squat down. After all, that was his father. Then, he received 2 loud slaps on the forehead. After slapping his son twice, Anoki felt much better. He snorted and said to his son, I asked you to send troops at the critical moment, but I just asked you to pretend, not to really fight. The Hidden Cloud Village didn't consume much strength in the last war. At present, among our 5 villages, only Konoha can still compete. With the Hidden Mist Village in the west, at least the Hidden Cloud Village will be more cautious, restrict their development, and contain Konoha Village by the way. If the Hidden Mist Village is really destroyed by them, it will be a disaster. So, although I hope that the Hidden Mist Village will suffer a great loss of strength, I don't want them to be completely destroyed. Do you understand? Facing the sharp eyes of his old father, Huangtu nodded seriously. I understand. But, seeing that he was hesitant to speak, Anoki frowned and asked, but what? But what if the Hidden Cloud Village ignores our threats and is determined to send troops to attack the Hidden Mist Village? Huangtu asked cautiously. Hearing this, Anoki raised his white beard, looked at him meaningfully and said, then we don't have to be polite to them. Sarutobi Hirozen has been waiting for this day for a long time. Hearing this, Huangtu looked towards the southeast thoughtfully. The Hidden Cloud Village has grown stronger now because it suffered the least losses in the last war. Whether it is their Iwagakure, Sand Village, Konoha, or Kirigakure, they are all very afraid. Especially Konoha, which is adjacent to the Hidden Cloud Village, is sitting on pins and needles, thinking all the time about how to weaken the Hidden Cloud Village. The Land of Water and the Land of Lightning are across the sea. If the Hidden Cloud Village uses troops against the Kirigakure, it will not be easy to withdraw them. This undoubtedly gives Konoha the opportunity to attack Huanglang directly, and the Hidden Cloud Village can just take advantage of the opportunity and make a fortune by going over by sea. Okay, I'm tired. Go back and rest. I still have to teach little Kirotsuchi ninjutsu tomorrow. Anoki greeted Huangtu and then took small steps and slowly left the roof. In Konoha Village, many high-ranking officials who also learned about the civil war in Kirigakure also launched a heated discussion. In the end, they decided to keep a close eye on Kimogakure's actions and prepare to watch from the sidelines. Kirigakure's strength has declined significantly after several rounds of civil strife, and it has not yet recovered. In addition, it is across the sea, so the threat it can pose to Konoha is very limited. It doesn't make much sense to destroy them for Konoha. Konoha does not need such an enclave on the sea. Moreover, Konoha, which has vast land resources, is not short of Kirigakure's resources. At this time, Konoha's biggest threat is Kimogaku in the northeast. Destroying Kirigakure can certainly solve the hidden dangers on the sea in the west, but Kimogaku will become the biggest winner. Because the closest to Kimogaku, apart from Konoha, is only Kirigakure on the sea. Therefore, instead of destroying Kirigakure, it is better to leave them behind and tie up some of Kimogakure's energy. Besides, Konoha is located in the center of the 5 major villages, and every move is watched by the other villages, who are always thinking about tearing a piece of meat from Konoha. If Konoha rashly uses military force against Kirigakure, it will easily cause a chain reaction. After comprehensively considering the pros and cons, Konoha's top brass decided not to get involved in Kirigakure's mess and was determined to keep an eye on Qimogakure. If there was an opportunity, they would take advantage of it and stab Qimogakure in the back. In the ambu of Konoha, an old man who was leaning on a cane and half of his face was wrapped in bandages ordered several subordinates, pass the order, tell all spies hidden in the Hidden Mist village, to release the six tails at all costs. Hearing this, an Anbu ninja looked up and asked in surprise, Danzo-sama, didn't Hokage-sama say that he would not participate in the civil war in the Hidden Mist? Naive. Stupid. Danzo hit his cane heavily and said with great sorrow, the third generation is still too kind. The Hidden Mist is destined to be our enemy. Although we have no plans to destroy them for the time being, we cannot miss any opportunity to weaken the Hidden Mist. The weaker the enemy, the better. As if remembering the past, he said solemnly, during the war in the past, the Hidden Mist had a plan to destroy Konoha with the three tails. Fortunately, they failed, and Konoha was spared a disaster. Now, it's time for them to repay. There are two Jinchuriki in the Hidden Mist village, the three tails and the six tails. But the three-tailed beast has become one of the few perfect Jinchuriki in the ninja world, and he is also the fourth generation Mizukage of the Hidden Mist village. Naturally, the tactical plan of releasing the tailed beast is difficult to use on the three-tailed beast. Therefore, they can only choose the six-tailed beast. Fortunately, the six-tailed beast in the Hidden Mist village is a failed Jinchuriki, and his control over the power of the tailed beast is very weak, so he has been under guard to prevent it from going out of control. If they can release the six-tailed beast on the battlefield of the Hidden Mist village, it can not only save Konoha's manpower loss, but also cause a heavy blow to the Hidden Mist. It can be said to be a best of both worlds. The only pity is that all the spies trained in the Hidden Mist over the years are afraid that they will not survive. After all, the Jinchuriki belongs to the top secret of the village. Even if the Hidden Mist civil war is not well prepared, it is not an easy task for Konoha's spies to release the six-tailed beast. Once these people are exposed, they will definitely be hunted down by the entire Hidden Mist village, and it is difficult for them to survive. Soon, Danzo's order to release the six-tailed beast was heard by the Konoha spies hidden in the Hidden Mist. Immediately, many spies began to become active. Chapter 395 One night, there was also a heated discussion in the Hidden Cloud village. They knew that Konoha and the Iwagakure across the sea had bad intentions, but facing the opportunity that was so close, it was really hard for them to say the word give up. Because if they could destroy the Hidden Mist village on the sea, it would undoubtedly solve a big hidden danger for them. In addition, their strength was at its peak at this time, far beyond the other four villages that were quietly recuperating, and they were eager to show their strength. Therefore, most of the high-level people in the Hidden Cloud village advocated fighting. In the end, the fourth generation Raikage decided to compromise. On the one hand, he left most of the troops to guard against the Hidden Mist village in Konoha, and on the other hand, he sent a small number of troops to attack the Hidden Mist village. If they could take advantage of the situation to destroy them in one fell swoop, it would be a cause for celebration. But if they couldn't destroy the Hidden Mist village, they could also give them a heavy blow. In the Hidden Mist village, the Hidden Mist village troops mobilized by Afei in the name of the Mizukage were intercepted by Hashiga Kitarumi's troops halfway before they entered the battlefield. The two sides quickly engaged in a fierce battle, but the main force of Hashiga Kitarumi's side was besieging Hazuki, so there were not many people who could stop the Kirigakure's elite troops. Everyone fought and retreated, and soon the Kirigakure's elite troops broke through the defense line and directly entered the battlefield. After the Kirigakure troops intervened, the situation of Hashiga Kitarumi's side, which had originally had the upper hand, took a sharp turn for the worse, and casualties began to gradually increase. The battle continued until the sky gradually brightened. Seeing that there was no hope of conquering Hazuki, Hashiga Kitarumi's side had no choice but to choose to retreat. After a night of hard fighting, everyone was exhausted, and fighting any further would only result in mutual destruction. Hazuki Masamune did not pursue them when he saw them, but just ordered everyone to clean up the battlefield, because they also need to rest. After finding Afei in a remote corner, he angrily questioned him, Why did the support come so slowly? Do you know how many of us died just because you came more than 2 hours late? Arfei sat on a broken wall, swinging his legs, and said nonchalantly, "Don't be so angry, clan leader. Aren't we here? You also know that it is not easy to gather the troops in the village at this time. So, it took us a little more time." As he said, he stretched out his index finger and thumb to make a gesture. Hearing this explanation, Kizuna Masamune's anger subsided a little, but he heard a bit of frivolity in Arfei's tone, and he felt an ominous feeling in his heart. He has been secretly investigating Arfei's identity and purpose, but he still hasn't found much useful information. The only thing he found out is that Arfei appeared in the battle between Kirigakure and Konoha several years ago, and participated in the competition for the Three-Tails Jinchuriki. As for the rest, he knows nothing. At present, Arfei was wandering around the outskirts of the Kizuna family. Although he was claiming to help the Kizuna family, Kizuna Masamune could not see how sincere he was. Especially now, the other party's ambiguous tone made him nervous. If at this critical moment, they lost the support brought by Arfei in the name of Mizukage, their Kizuna family would be destroyed. After weighing the pros and cons, Kizuna Masamune suppressed his anger and forced a smile, saying relieved, "So that's the case. Then I really wronged you. By the way, how is the situation in the prison? Those hostages will not be rescued by someone in the chaos?" In order to avoid embarrassment, he quietly changed the subject. "Don't worry, I haven't mobilized the troops stationed in the prison. They are still guarding the well, and not even a mosquito can fly out," Arfei said nonchalantly. "There are 2,000 troops guarding outside the prison. It is impossible for Terumi and Hoshigaki to capture them in a very short time. Therefore, even if Hoshigaki Terumi's side rushed to rescue people, they would have enough time to rush to support. As for the hostages in the prison, they were all drugged and locked with iron chains. There was no possibility of escape, so there was no need to worry." Hearing this, Kizuna Masamune nodded and said, "I still have to arrange the next battle, so I won't talk to you anymore." After that, he waved his hand and turned away worriedly. Arfei sat on the broken wall and said goodbye happily without any heart. Goodbye. Although the war in Kirigakure had stopped at this time, half of the village had turned into scorched earth, countless corpses lay on the ruins, and more people were buried under the ruins and would never see the sun again. After all, ordinary people were too fragile in the face of ninjas with extraordinary powers. Before the civil war began, there were at least rules to constrain these extraordinary people, but when the war started, the order completely collapsed. The rules became false, and no one cared about the lives of these ordinary people, unless one side defeated the other and re-established order. Otherwise, Kirigakure would be a living hell for ordinary people who could not use chakra. They would only be a group of ants that could be trampled to death at any time. Therefore, countless residents of Kirigakure broke through the checkpoints overnight and fled from this dangerous place. There were even many scattered Kirigakure ninjas who directly blew up the village's protective wall and opened a passage from the wall to escape from here. At this time, Kirigakure village, except for the forces belonging to the three major families, had no many people. Overnight, the huge Kirigakure village with a population of hundreds of thousands seemed to have become an empty city. In addition to the fear of war and death, the people who escaped from Kirigakure also had a deep hatred for the culprit who caused all this. It was the two major families of Hoshigaki and Terumi who provoked the war and broke the peace of Kirigakure village, causing them to have no home to return, and even many relatives and friends died in the battle last night. Therefore, after the Hazuki Masamune raised the banner of quelling the rebellion, many scattered Kirigakure ninjas responded and joined the Hazuki family with hatred. Then, the power of the Hazuki family, which won the hearts of the people, grew rapidly like a balloon. The Hoshigaki and Terumi families were anxious, but they couldn't think of any good solution for a while. If they could have taken advantage of the slow rescue of the fourth Hokage to break into the Kizuna family last night, the situation would not be like this today. Unfortunately, they still underestimated the Kizuna family. Helplessly, the two families had to shrink their defenses while preparing to retreat at any time. Kirigakure was no longer suitable for them. In the dungeon, Terumi Mei used limited chakra with her tenacious willpower to continuously try the fusion experiment. Because the chakra was limited, the chakra that could be put into the fusion experiment each time was extremely scarce. Thanks to this, her control and observation of the fusion experiment became stronger, and even if the experiment failed, the backlash caused by energy annihilation was extremely limited. So, she let go of the safety restrictions on the fusion experiment in the past and boldly carried out the chakra fusion experiment. Unfortunately, she didn't know how many times she failed, until her eyes were bloodshot and sweat rolled down her cheeks. The experiment still didn't make any progress. Give up, Mary. King on the opposite side sighed helplessly. If it was really that easy to practice bloodline elimination, there wouldn't be only one type of dust release now. I'll try again, Meditarumi said with red eyes and gritted teeth. Countless failed experiments, coupled with the depletion of mental power, pushed her severely injured body to the brink of limit. Then, she used her remaining mental power to extract 3 strands of chakra from her body and transferred them to her palm, and once again controlled them to conduct a fusion experiment. Because of the depletion of mental power, her consciousness gradually blurred, and the fusion experiment became increasingly incapable. It was at this time, under the control of her blurred consciousness, the 3 strands of chakra intertwined in her palm gradually changed. Chapter 396. Finally, the 3 strands of chakra, which were originally distinct, began to merge from the top, like twisted hemp ropes, and slowly spread downwards. After discovering this abnormal situation, Meditarumi forced herself to cheer up, held her breath, and memorized the changes of the 3 strands of chakra one by one in her heart. Finally, when the fusion was completely completed, the 3 strands of chakra turned into a wisp of grey-white mist. She forced herself to remain calm, holding the wisp of mist and blowing gently at the shackles. The grey-white mist swept across the shackles, and the shackles that were originally indestructible under the dissolving mucus began to melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a moment, a deep gap was corroded by the grey-white mist. There is no doubt that this is a new escape technique that far exceeds the corrosive power of boiling escape and dissolving escape, and it is a bloodline elimination. Captain, I succeeded. I became. Meditarumi excitedly reported the good news to King, but unfortunately, before she finished speaking, she fainted due to mental exhaustion. Hearing the exclamation of the girl in the blue skirt, King looked back in surprise, but he didn't wait for her explanation. He only saw her sleeping soundly at the foot of the wall. He couldn't help but feel depressed. I don't know how long it took, but Tarumi Mei finally woke up. After a good sleep, most of the mental fatigue was dissipated, and the originally drowsy head was much more comfortable, and the thoughts were much clearer. Ming, why did you suddenly faint? You scared me. King asked anxiously. Terumi Mei was stunned for a moment, and then slowly recalled, I was trying a fusion experiment before, and then. As she spoke, the process of the 3 chakras merging into one appeared in her mind again. Then I succeeded, she said to King with a smile. Success. King was skeptical. He couldn't believe that he witnessed the birth of the second bloodline elimination in the ninja world under such circumstances. Yeah. Terumi Mei nodded, and then spread her palms, trying to mobilize 3 chakras, and tried to reproduce the new escape technique according to the memory left before. Bang! As soon as the 3 strands of chakra came into contact, a slight explosion occurred, and the fusion failed. Sorry, I'm not very skilled yet. Meditarumi smiled awkwardly at the middle-aged man with the eye mask. I'll try again. Then, she mobilized her chakra again to try to fuse. After failing 5 times in a row, Meditarumi finally found the feeling of success at the beginning, and fused the 3 strands of chakra into one, turning into a wisp of grey-white mist. Look, she called out to King, holding the grey-white mist, and blowing gently at the gap left on the shackles before. Then, King saw that after the grey-white mist passed by, the gap on the shackles expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. What a terrible corrosive power, he exclaimed sincerely. Obviously, the corrosive power of the grey-white mist has far exceeded that of Meditarumi's original boiling acid mist. Captain, keep an eye on the wind. I will use this new escape technique to corrode the iron chain. Calling King, Meditarumi mobilized chakra again and performed a new escape technique. Okay, just do it. If someone comes, I'll warn them. King agreed excitedly. Now that he had the hope of escaping from here, he was more active in keeping watch. Not long after creating 7 or 8 wisps of grey mist, Meditarumi finally broke the iron chain on her body and got rid of the restraints completely. "Captain, it's your turn." Hiss. She stood up and was about to walk over to untie King. Unexpectedly, she felt a burst of severe pain in her shoulder, which made her gasp a few times. Her shoulder blade was broken by the sneak attack of the one-eyed mask before. She didn't feel much impact when she leaned against the wall earlier, but now she stood up and walked, but she frowned in pain. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing her face in pain, King asked hurriedly. "It's okay, I just broke my bones in the sneak attack before." Meditarumi waved her hand and said nonchalantly, and walked over with all her strength. "Or, you can take a rest. I can wait a little longer," King said with concern. He watched Meditarumi grow up, just like his own daughter. Now that her bones were broken, she still pretended to be relaxed, which really distressed him. "We can't wait any longer." The girl in the blue skirt shook her head and said with a worried look on her face, "The fighting has started outside. We must leave here as soon as possible and expose the fact that the 4th generation is being manipulated." Although they were in the dungeon, they could still clearly hear the fighting outside. Obviously, the war has begun. Moreover, it is very likely that the war was instigated by the Terumi family. She must leave here quickly and go back to take charge of the overall situation. Otherwise, the Terumi family is in danger of being overthrown. Hearing this, King stopped dissuading them and could only try his best to do his sentry work. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and asked in a low voice, "Wait a minute, when we go out, we will have to pass through other cells. What are you going to do with those people?" Hearing this, the action of Meditarumi's hand could not help but stop. After a long while, she continued to use the grey mist to corrode the iron chain on King's body and said, "We can only ask them to stay here for the time being." At this moment, because of the medicine, the chakra she could use each time was very scarce. It took a lot of time to save each person. Saving King was already her limit. If she rescued everyone one by one, she didn't know how long she would be busy. Besides, she was still injured, and her chakra was limited. It was a very difficult problem to protect herself, so how could she have the time to save others? Even if she rescued them, she couldn't pass through the heavily guarded defense zone outside with so many guys who had no combat power. The reason why she spent a lot of effort to save King, in addition to the reason of familiarity, was King's Byakugan. In her current state, no genin could beat her. If she wanted to escape from here, she needed to rely on King's Byakugan to remotely detect the position of the guards, and then avoid them whenever she could. Otherwise, any guard she met would cut off their possibility of escape. Hearing this, King secretly breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "Since you know what's going on, I won't say any more." He was afraid that Ming would get confused at this critical moment and want to rescue the others as well. By then, I'm afraid none of them would be able to leave. Then, while dealing with the iron chain, Meditarumi asked in a low voice, "Captain, with your current chakra, how long can the Byakugan last?" King thought for a moment and said slowly, "Each time the accumulated chakra can last about 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, I need to rest and accumulate chakra again to open it." It doesn't take too much chakra to open the Byakugan, but now because his chakra is restricted by drugs, even maintaining the Byakugan for a long time has become a luxury. 10 seconds? Barely enough. Meditarumi sighed helplessly. Chapter 397 Awareness. After a long while, Meditarumi finally untied King's restraints and the iron lock on the prison door, and the two of them tiptoed out. Because of the war, the Kizuna family transferred their people back, and there were only a few guards left in the prison. Considering that all the prisoners in the prison were drugged and locked up, there was almost no possibility of escaping. After the guards in the prison were transferred away, they did not add any more. In addition, there were Zili troops from Kirigakure guarding outside. Even if someone escaped from prison, it would be impossible to really escape. Therefore, the Kizuna family was not worried about the hostages escaping, and the guards in the prison were very lax. Taking advantage of King's rolling eyes to avoid the guards, and saying hello to the other imprisoned hostages, Meditarumi and the others escaped from the dungeon without any danger, and came to the ground, but it was not time for them to relax. Although the guards in the prison were lax, because there was no one in the prison, their escape would be discovered sooner or later. By that time, if they had not escaped from the area where the guards were stationed outside, it would be dangerous. On the other side, Zetsu found a fei lying on the ruins and enjoying the breeze. A fei, someone escaped from the prison. Black Zetsu said to the one-eyed mask in a hoarse voice. After arriving at the hidden mist village, he used the countless clones of White Zetsu to plant secret stakes underground, and then used the telepathic ability between the clones of White Zetsu to weave a large intelligence network covering the hidden mist village. In this way, he can use the clones of White Zetsu to control the intelligence of the entire hidden mist village at any time. Hearing what Black Zetsu said, a fei immediately sat up and said in doubt, how is it possible? In any case, he was unwilling to believe that someone could escape from prison when the chakra was banned. If it was said that someone outside broke into the prison to save someone, there would be a trace of credibility. Black Zetsu continued, I also think it is impossible, but White Zetsu hiding near the prison did see someone escape from prison. Maybe they found some special method. As he said, he shook his head, his tone was very helpless. There are many unexpected things in the ninja world, and it is not surprising to encounter one occasionally. Then do you know who escaped from prison? Fei looked at him and asked solemnly. It was a little girl named Mediterranean King, who is known as the Bayan Killer. Ju's white half rushed to reply. Is it them? Fei was a little surprised, because the two were old acquaintances. Then, he activated the right Sharingan, opened a vortex of void in front of him, and then sucked himself in. On the other side, not long after Mediterumi and the other escaped from prison, the patrolling prison guards noticed the fact that they had escaped from prison. With the sound of the horn, the guards outside the prison also knew about this situation and immediately moved to search for the escaped prisoners. Poor Mediterumi and the other, because King's Byakugan could not be maintained for a long time, they had to rest after walking for a while, and they also had to be careful to avoid the patrolling guards. Until now, the two have not completely walked out of the guards' defense area. At this moment, the guards received the signal from the prison and began to search for their whereabouts. It can be said that the danger has reached the extreme. Ming, it seems we can't escape. Looking at the guards who were getting closer and closer, King smiled bitterly at the girl in the blue skirt while hiding in the corner. In their current state, it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. No one knows the result until the last moment. Are you going to give up now, Captain? Mediterumi looked at him solemnly and said. Seeing the girl's firm expression, King sighed and said self-deprecatingly, it seems that the comfortable life in the past few years has made my heart weaker. Originally, he was not a person who gave up so easily, but the peaceful life after the war made him lose his enterprising and resolute heart. Have you accumulated chakra? Mediterumi asked, changing the subject. Only by relying on King's long-range vision of the Byakugan and avoiding the guards in advance can they escape from the gap of the surge. Blindly fleeing will only turn into a fight of trapped beasts. Bayan. King did not answer, but responded to the inquiry of the girl in the blue skirt with practical actions. Then, he quickly took in all the guards within 100 meters, and from their search routes, he found their blind spots and drew a safe escape route for himself. Let's go. He called out to the girl and immediately rushed out. Terumi followed closely behind without any hesitation. Fortunately, the prison was not a vast open plain, but a lot of short bushes. Otherwise, even with King Bayan, the two would not be able to avoid the guard's vision. Unfortunately, because of their chakra restrictions, Terumi was injured, and their mobility was greatly restricted. Although they tried their best to avoid, they were still discovered by the guards who were searching around because of their delayed actions. They are here. The guard who found them shouted loudly. The other guards heard the news and came and immediately surrounded them. Looking at the guards surrounding them, King slowly stood up from the bushes and said bitterly, Ming, it seems that we really can't escape today. Mediterumi, who also stood up from the bushes, bit her lip and glanced at the guards with hatred. If looks could kill, these guards would have died countless times. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? She asked herself anxiously in her heart, but her chakra was restricted, and she couldn't use any means. At the moment, she could only be a lamb to be slaughtered. Capture them. The leading guard glanced at the two of them coldly and then gave orders to the subordinates next to him. Immediately, 4 mist ninjas walked out of the queue and walked slowly towards them. Are we really going to stop here? Just as Terumi was crying desperately in her heart, a cold voice came from behind the encirclement. Water style, mist hidden technique. Then, a thick fog floated from behind, covering everyone like an overwhelming force, and Terumi and the other person immediately disappeared from the eyes of the guards. Who is it? Who abused the mist hidden technique? The panicked guards cursed in the mist, but the only response they got was the cold flash of a knife and the screams of their companions. It turned out that 2 ninjas, one tall and one short, wearing mist-hidden Anbu masks, rushed in from outside the guards' encirclement. In an instant, the 2 mist-hidden Anbu rushed to Terumi and the other 2. Follow me. The tall one told the 2, and then led the way out. Hearing this voice, Terumi and Kinjin's eyes lit up and followed without hesitation. Because it was a familiar voice. The short mist-hidden ninja followed behind, covering the 3 people, and shot Silver Thousand Bones at the guards who were surrounding them. Although the killing power of the Thousand Bones was very limited, all the guards who were hit by the Thousand Bones fell to the ground without exception. Because all the Thousand Bones hit their necks. I don't like to write inexplicable coincidences. Once in a while is enough. There are so many coincidences that everyone always feels like a lucky person. Chapter 398 Hatred. Except for a few guards, who were relatively close, and blocked the way of the tall mist ninja, they fought back. Most of the guards were in a mess, because of the pitch black fog and the screams of their companions. They were afraid of suffering the same fate as their companions. They quickly joined forces with their companions, and deployed a defensive formation back to back. Then, the entire encirclement collapsed. Because of their collapse, Terumi and her group, led by 2 Anbu mist ninjas, quickly broke out of the encirclement and rushed to the Terumi family's residence. On a tall building not far from the prison, Ju's white half pointed at the 4 figures who escaped the encirclement and said playfully, "Afei, if you don't take action, they will escape into the Terumi family's sphere of influence. Once the hostages escape there, it will be difficult to catch them back with the protection of many mist ninjas." The breeze blew his clothes. Afei stared at the 4 moving figures and said slowly, "I suddenly thought of a more interesting game plan. Why not collect some interest first and let that guy also experience the pain of life and death? You want to kill them?" Black Zetsu looked at him in surprise. Afei sneered and said, "I must kill them, but not all at once. I will kill his friends one by one and torture him and his companions slowly. Return double the pain and despair he brought me back then. There is no revenge that is more satisfying than torturing the enemy's heart. What about the others? Let them go or catch them?" White Zetsu asked curiously. "Let go." Under the mask, Afei spat out a word coldly and then added, "Huzuki is in the upper hand at the moment. It's a bit too smooth. If it continues like this, the Hoshigaki and Terumi families will be defeated without a doubt. That woman named Terumi happens to be the young matriarch of the Terumi family. I think she should have known from the White Eye Killer that the Mizukage is controlled by me. With her reputation, if she makes this matter public, it will be highly credible. You say, when the Hazuki family thinks the situation is settled, and then it is revealed that the Mizukage is controlled by someone, and it was their plan first, what will the situation become?" As he said that, he turned his head and looked at the black and white weirdo next to him with a playful look. Black Zetsu thought for a moment and said slowly, "Once this is said, it will definitely arouse suspicion among many mist ninjas. Although not everyone will believe it, it is enough as long as someone has doubts. Especially the scattered forces that Kido has attracted in the name of quelling the rebellion. They will definitely shrink a lot after this. And Terumi Hoshigaka's side can also take this opportunity to raise the banner of quelling the rebellion, attract scattered forces, and narrow the gap with Kido's faction. However, in this way, rumors will spread that the Mizukage is being controlled, and the prestige of the Mizukage will definitely be greatly reduced, and you want to use Yagura to control the Zili troops of the Mist Village. I'm afraid it will be unlikely." Black Zetsu felt it was a pity to lose such a force. Afei waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "Now that things have developed to this point, the Mizukage no longer means much to me. The war has begun, and it will never stop unless one side falls. And those out of control Kirigakure troops, no matter which side they choose to believe in, they cannot escape the vortex of this war. They are like dry wood added to the fire, which will only make this war burn more and more fiercely. As he said this, he mobilized chakra to activate the right Sharingan, and then opened a vortex of void, and sucked himself in. When the vortex of void disappeared, only a black and white monster wrapped in a large serrated leaf was left on the tall building. On the other side, Meditarumi and her group rushed forward, after breaking out of the encirclement, but unfortunately she and King were exhausted, and panting because of the effect of the drug, before they ran far. After confirming that there were no pursuers behind them for the time being, Meditarumi stopped on a broken wall and said breathlessly, "No, I can't run anymore." After that, she collapsed to the ground along the wall. She was already injured, and because of the medicine, she was really exhausted after this fast run. I can't run anymore. Let's take a break," King said to the two Anbu Miss Ninjas with the same expectation. Hearing this, the short Anbu Miss Ninja didn't say anything, but just looked at his tall companion. It seemed that he was the one who made the decision. The tall one glanced around and said, "Since we need to take a break, let's climb over the wall. It's easy to be discovered here." Okay. Next to them was a half-collapsed residential building, which could just cover their whereabouts. King nodded, helped the girl who was sitting on the ground, and then went in through the gap in the wall. Then, the two Anbu Miss Ninjas followed in. But the short Miss Ninja hid in the shadow near the gap, and didn't go in. King leaned against the wall, glanced at him, and said to the tall Anbu Miss Ninja sincerely, "Zabuza, you picked up a good seedling." Obviously, the short man took the initiative to take the responsibility of guarding. The tall man was slightly stunned and asked in surprise, "When did you recognize me?" As he said that, he slowly took off his mask, revealing his face without eyebrows and the lower half wrapped in bandages. It was the demon Momochi's abuser. Before King could answer, Terumi Medi next to him rushed to say, "Although we have rarely met, since you entered the Anbu, I will not be wrong about your voice and swordsmanship. That sharp and familiar swordsmanship, never using a second sword to kill people, isn't it her former partner? As for that one, it should be Zio Bebe, right?" Terumi Medi glanced at the short Miss Ninja and said jokingly. Then, she saw the short man slowly take off his mask, revealing a delicate and beautiful face, and gave her a polite smile. It was Bei who had always been with Zabuza. So pretty. What a pity it's a boy. Terumi shook her head helplessly and sighed. King, who was standing beside him, also looked strange. Bei's face was very pretty, and people often mistakenly thought she was a girl, but in fact she was a real boy. Because it was not common, King had forgotten this fact, but when this fact was ruthlessly exposed by Terumi, he was really upset. He was a grown man, but he actually thought a boy was pretty. Without noticing King's abnormality, Terumi asked Zabuza curiously, "But, then again, why did you come to save us? Are you missing our friendship?" As she spoke, a hint of mischief appeared on her face. Zabuza rolled his eyes at her and said, "Don't get me wrong, it's not as noble as you think, fighting for friendship. The reason I saved you was just for fun." For fun? King was surprised. The so-called killing without a second knife does not mean that you can kill someone by saying that you will kill someone. It means that Zabuza's swordsmanship is deadly, and he hits the vital point directly. Once he hits, he doesn't need to make a second strike. This is also the origin of Kishimoto's name Zabuza, which describes his superb swordsmanship. As for how strong Zabuza's swordsmanship is, I will write about it later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399, Blocking the Road. After sweeping the gravel on the ground, Zabuza sat on the ground and said slowly, "Since the coup of the Hazuki clan, there have been frequent personnel changes in the Anbu. Many ninjas from large families have left their posts, and the work of the entire Anbu has almost stagnated. Then there was the vicious incident of Hashigaki Kasame killing the Fuguki, and the Anbu was completely in chaos." Hearing this, Terumi exclaimed, and said in disbelief, "That guy is dead." Although many years have passed, the powerful image of the Fuguki still remains in her heart, and she can't forget it for a long time. However, she never thought that such a strong man would die so quietly. Not even a rumor was heard. Perhaps, because the situation was too chaotic, and she was busy with the affairs of the clan, she didn't pay attention to such information. Yes, he is indeed dead. Zabuza sighed, and then said, the death of the pufferfish demon became the last straw that broke the camel's back for the Anbu. Since then, the Anbu has collapsed and completely paralyzed. Except for a few people who remain in the Anbu, most of them have gone their separate ways. Later, the 4th Hokage issued a transfer order and transferred the rest of us to the prison to assist in defense. Originally, after hearing that you and the captain were imprisoned, I also thought about saving you, but the power of Bay and I is always limited. It is too dangerous to act rashly, so I gave up. I didn't expect that you would successfully escape from prison and escape to the ground, so I might as well help you. After saying that, he spread his hands, showing a bit of helplessness. However, King, who has more experience, still saw that Zabuza was not as casual as he said. If he really just did it casually, there was no need to take such a big risk to break into the siege to save them. After listening to Zabuza's story, Terumi Mei stood up and said to the 3 people, let's go, let's leave here quickly. After resting for a while, she felt much better, but her legs were still sore. But they were not completely out of danger and could not stay here for a long time. Then, a group of 4 people quietly got out of the gap in the wall and continued to move towards the Terumi clan's residence. On the way, King said to Zabuza solemnly, although you were wearing a mask when you saved us, they couldn't recognize your identity for the time being, but it should be only a matter of time before you are exposed. Why don't you just go to Mei with me? It's safer to gather everyone's strength together. Zabuza listened thoughtfully, but did not answer immediately. A ninja like him who has no power and family affiliation has only 2 choices in the current chaos. One is to stay away from here and remain completely neutral. The other is to choose a force and join the battle. Otherwise, in this chaos, if you still stay here without making a choice, it will be extremely dangerous. If he is not careful, he will be crushed to pieces by the aftermath of the confrontation between the forces of Hazuki and others. If he chooses to leave and remain neutral, he is not willing to do so. After all, he was born and raised here. If he leaves the Hidden Mist village, he doesn't know where to go. But if he chooses to go to Terumi Mei, he is not willing to do so either. Because he has no connection with the Terumi clan and its subordinate families, he feels a little repulsive to join such a force without any sense of belonging. Thinking of this, he said to King as he walked, I think I'd better stay in the Anbu. Lord Mizukage should still be able to use us. Compared with the 3 major families, scattered ninjas like him are more willing to choose to be loyal to the Mizukage. After all, he is the leader of a village. As long as the Mizukage is still in office, they are willing to offer their loyalty. The 4th Hokage, King, who was standing next to him, was slightly stunned when he heard this. He shook his head and said, the 4th Hokage has been controlled by someone using illusions. Now there is someone else exercising the power of the Mizukage. What? Zabuza was surprised to hear this news suddenly, and said, don't joke, the 4th Hokage is a perfect Jinkriki. Illusions have no effect on him at all. King pointed to his right eye patch and whispered, do you think my Byakugan can see wrongly? This? Zabuza was speechless. The Byakugan's insight is unparalleled in the ninja world. If King used the Byakugan to confirm the fact that the 4th Hokage was controlled by someone using illusions, then all this is very likely to be true. How could this be? Zabuza was speechless. At this moment, a hoarse voice appeared on the right side of the group. Let me tell you why. Several people looked in the direction of the voice, but saw a figure coming out of the vortex in the void about 5 meters away from them. Not good. Hurry up. King screamed and immediately led everyone to flee. At the same time, after seeing that familiar figure and ability, Mei Terumi also turned pale. The one-eyed mask chased after them. At this time, among the 4 of them, Shi and King had lost their ability to fight, leaving only Zabuza and Haku with intact fighting power. If the 2 sides fought, Zabuza and Haku would be in great danger with the 2 of them. Moreover, that guy's ability was too strange, and I'm afraid Zabuza and Haku were not opponents. At the moment, they had no choice but to run for their lives. I've seen him beside the 4th generation before. He is a friend of the 4th generation. Why are you running away? Zabuza chased after him and asked loudly. The one-eyed mask in the 4th generation had been to the Enbu several times, so he had some impression of him. While running away, King shouted back, he is the mastermind behind the 4th generation's use of illusions, and he is also the guy we met when we were recovering the Three Tails Jinchuriki. Hearing this, Zabuza suddenly realized it. No wonder he always had a strange feeling when he first saw the one-eyed mask. It turns out that they had fought before. The 4 of them ran all the way, but it was a pity that Meditarumi and Ao slowed down after running a few steps, and Zabuza and Haku were also dragged down, and their speed could not be increased at all. Afeni easily caught up with them with a few leaps and immediately blocked the way of the 4. Meditarumi stood firm, looked at the calm one-eyed mask on the opposite side, gritted his teeth, and said to Zabuza and the others, you two go first, don't worry about us. Obviously, this one-eyed mask came for the 2 prisoners who escaped from prison. Without their drag, Zabuza and Haku should have a chance to escape. No. Ao shook his head and said to Zabuza, I will stay alone, you take Mei away. Meditarumi recently cultivated the bloodline elimination and has infinite potential. It is completely foreseeable that she will become a pillar of the village like Anoki of the Iwagakure 2 worlds. She can't die here, and she shouldn't die here. As a senior, Ao can do is to reduce Zabuza's burden and leave them a chance to escape. With the help of Zabuza and Haku, Medi still has a great chance of escaping. Chapter 400, Cutting Off. Let me do it. Staring at the one-eyed masked man walking slowly in the distance, Zabuza took off the long sword behind him expressionlessly and said calmly, Bay, you take the 2 of them first, I'll cover you. Yes, Mr. Zabuza. Bay nodded, helped Meditarumi and King beside him, and was about to leave. No. King got rid of Bay's support and shook his head. It's too hard for you to take both of us at the same time. Take Medi away first, otherwise none of us can leave. Meditarumi opened her mouth, wanting to refute, but didn't know what to say. It's hard to run fast with a burden, and if Bay took the 2 of them, he couldn't run far, so he could only come one by one, or just abandon the other. And now, the captain's intention is very clear, that is, to do his best to save her. Seeing this, Bay next to him whispered, Mr. Rumimei, time is urgent, I'm sorry. After that, he held up Meditarumi's arm and disappeared among the ruined houses in a few moves. King looked at Zabuza who was slowly approaching the one-eyed mask and then turned to the other side. He would only be a burden if he stayed here, so in order to avoid distracting Zabuza, he could only stay away from here as much as possible. On the other side, Afeni watched the 3 people leave one after another and did not try to stop them. Because he wanted to keep Meditarumi until the end, so that Nana Frost could experience everything he had experienced. As for the rest of the people, it didn't matter who was killed first. As long as someone stayed, it would be enough. In order to relieve the pressure on these people and allow some of them to escape smoothly, he even stopped the guards' pursuit in the name of the Mizukage and made additional deployments. On the opposite side, seeing that the enemy had stopped them, but was not in a hurry to attack, Zabuza was confused. He gripped the hilt of the sword tightly, but did not draw the sword, but kept the posture of drawing the sword, slowly approaching the one-eyed mask. He did not forget that he almost died at the hands of the other party. Therefore, he has been thinking about how to get back at the place. Today, the opportunity finally came. Seeing him ready for battle, Afei stopped and pinched his chin and said, I heard them call you Zabuza. I guess you are the guy who used the sword back then. I didn't expect that you and the Bayan killer are really lucky. You didn't die even after such serious injuries. TSK, TSK, TSK. As he said that, he smacked his lips and sighed. Only one person is missing, and all the old acquaintances will be gathered. Zabuza still slowly approached and sneered. Kirigakure ninja, revenge must be taken. The revenge of the past should be paid today. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward and then saw a flash of silver light, and his sword had passed under the neck of the one-eyed mask. Over the years, he has focused on the practice of swordsmanship and has reached a very sophisticated level. Even compared with the top samurai swordsman in the Iron Kingdom, he is not inferior. Unfortunately, Afei was prepared and used the dynamic vision ability of the Sharingan to see Zabuza's movements clearly. Although he didn't have time to dodge the extremely fast sword drawing, he only needed a thought to activate the hollowing ability of the main Jiki Sharingan. Therefore, he easily avoided Zabuza's sword drawing with the help of the hollowing ability. Then, he commented with a frivolous tone, "Not bad swordsmanship, but you are too confident to want revenge with just this little skill." As he said that, he grabbed a piece of wooden thorn sticking out of his sleeve and stabbed it hard at Zabuza in front of him. Swish! A silver light flashed, and the wooden thorn in his hand was immediately broken into 2 pieces. It was Zabuza who drew his sword with his backhand and cut off his wooden thorn in an instant. Obviously, the opponent was faster than him and was a ninja with stronger physical skills than him. After figuring out this key point, Afei stepped forward and immediately prepared to retreat. Although he had the hollowing ability of his right eye and was not afraid of close combat, he was also unable to effectively attack the opponent when he was hollowing. Especially when facing such a strong physical fighter, when the physical skills are inferior to others, close combat is likely to capsize in the ditch. Even with the dynamic vision ability of the Sharingan, it is still the same. Because the visual advantage can only allow them to see ahead and predict the opponent's actions, but it cannot directly improve his own limb flexibility. Therefore, when encountering such an opponent with stronger physical skills than himself, there will be an embarrassing situation where the eyes can see clearly, but the body can't keep up. At the same time, sensing that he was about to retreat, Zabuza approached again and swung the long sword from bottom to top. At this moment, Afei focused his pupil power on his right eye and looked into his eyes. Sharingan illusion in a one-on-one battle. There is no more convenient and practical move than the Sharingan illusion. Unfortunately, his plan fell through. The red one-eyed looked, but did not see the expected clear eyes, but saw a pair of tightly closed eyes. Listen to the sound to determine the position. Afei was surprised. Obviously, the guy in front of him has practiced physical skills to the extreme and can reach the terrifying realm of listening to the sound to determine the position. The Sharingan illusion was completely ineffective because of the closed eyes. Not only that, the silver blade light also appeared in front of him. Because he chose to release the illusion, he didn't have time to switch to the ability of hollowing and could only try to turn his head away, trying to avoid this fatal blow. Swish! Zabuza's long sword slashed from bottom to top, cutting off a small half of Afei's mask. Although he avoided the fatal blow, Afei was not at ease, because there was still a long blood mark on his body. It was also caused by Zabuza's sword just now. Then, he recovered his breath and immediately activated the ability of hollowing, and then quickly sank into the ground. The opponent has the ability to identify the position by sound, and the ability to move is faster than him. If he wants to completely get rid of the opponent's melee entanglement, he must eliminate the sound caused by his own actions. Sinking into the ground is a solution he thought of now. Using the ability of hollowing to pass through the ground, he can get rid of the opponent silently. At the same time, realizing that the opponent's breath was gone, Zabuza opened his eyes immediately. There was only a fragment of a mask on the ground, and a little blood on the blade, but there was no sign of the opponent around. Unwilling to give up, he looked around and saw a guy wearing a broken mask about 5 meters away from him, slowly floating to the surface. Earth escape stealth technique? Zabuza subconsciously thought it was a technique to move freely in the soil. However, he did not give up the intention of attacking because the opponent was out of attack range. Then, he quickly flipped his fingers and quickly formed a set of hand seals. Water escape water dragon bullet technique. A blue water dragon raised its head from the ground and rushed directly towards the masked man, who had just floated to the surface. Seeing this, Afei also quickly formed a set of hand seals and then took a deep breath and gathered chakra in his mouth. Fire escape great fire dragon technique. He immediately saw a red flame spurting out, and then the flame quickly grew and turned into a red fire dragon, bearing its fangs and claws, and rushed towards the water dragon. Many people have misconception that the dynamic vision of the Sharingan can increase one's speed. I wonder, after the eye evolves, it can see the opponent's movements clearly, but the quality of the body remains the same, right? If the eye can see, can one's speed keep up? That's nonsense. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.